Chapter 776. You're welcome, but I remember that you were with O Ming, right? Even if he dumped you, you shouldn't be so miserable, right? When Yu Lily heard that, she felt even more embarrassed. She asked, "Do I look so miserable?" "Well, very miserable." How Yu looked at her and pinched the clothes she bought in the small store. She shook her head and said, "Look at what you are wearing. Where are the famous brands you used to wear?" Yu Lily took a sip of tea and chuckled. Then, she casually recounted what had happened. From 4 years ago, to being cheated of money, to 4 years later. How Yu saw her forced smile and did not expose her. She nodded and said, "That is to say, you are now being cheated by that beast. If you don't pay, he will sue you?" "Yes." Yu Lily poured herself a cup of tea and took a sip. "He gave me 5 days. If I can't come up with the money within 5 days, he will call the police to arrest me." As she said, her eyes turned red. "He is sure that I don't have the money to hire a lawyer to fight a lawsuit, and now there is no evidence in favor of me. How much does it cost?" "I don't know." Yu Lily's eyes were red, but when she saw how Yu's sympathetic look, she immediately laughed. "It may be 380,000, it may be more than 400,000. Anyway, the repair cost of the 2 cars has been more than 300,000. Plus the medical expenses. I am afraid it will be more than 400,000. "How much money do you have now?" How Yu asked. Yu Lily lowered her head and felt sad. "More than 700. I saved it by doing part-time jobs during the National Day holiday." "Do you have a place to live now?" "Yes, I just paid a quarter's rent a few days ago. Or you can work for me? Now you can't get so much money in a short time. There is a vacancy in the place where I work, and the salary is quite high. Do you want to try?" How Yu looked at Yu Lily and asked. Yu Lily was stunned, then shook her head without hesitation. "I don't do that." How Yu looked at her and suddenly laughed. "You have been with O Ming for so long. Didn't he cheat on you?" Yu Lily pursed her lips and did not speak. "If you want to make money quickly, this is the only way. The place where I work is a high-end place. If you go to an ordinary place, you won't earn as much as me." How Yu looked at her, her long false eyelashes fluttering. She picked up the powder to touch up her makeup and said calmly, "And with your small face and figure, you are much more valuable than mine. Maybe you can earn all the money in 2 days. After 2 days it will be easier." 2 days to earn all the money? It was indeed fast. If she could raise the money within 5 days, she would not have to worry or go to jail. She was still so young, 25 years old, a woman's most beautiful age. With a debt of more than 400,000, if he were to go to jail, it would definitely not be less than 10 years. When he came out, she didn't want it. But for her to sell herself, wouldn't that make her a whore that could be ridden by thousands of men? Could it be that this was the only way? Yu Lily bit her lower lip and hesitated for a moment. In the end, she shook her head firmly and said in a serious tone, "Sister How, I don't do that." Chapter 777. Yu Lily was shocked and quickly pushed it back and said, "Sister How, no, I have money to spend now." "Is it too little?" "No. Just take it. Anyway, it's not free. When you have money, you can return it to me." How Yu smiled like a blooming peony, beautiful and charming. She took out a business card from her beautiful purse and handed it over. "This is my business card. Keep in touch." Yu Lily took the business card. Night Jungle Floor Manager. How Yu. Following How Yu out of the restaurant, she found that How Yu was driving a beautiful red Porsche. The model was the latest model of this year, and even the license plate number was beautiful and enviable. So rich. Yu Lily enviously watched her car disappear into the distance, and obediently walked to the nearby subway station. Buying old mobile phones, computers, washing machines. The familiar sound of a horn on the street made Yu Lily freeze in place. Hearing the sound go away, she suddenly had an idea. Looking down, she looked at her bag. This was a limited edition Milan International brand that O Ming gave her on her 20th birthday. When coming out of Shishan Villa, Yu Lily took 5 or 6 bags out. Each of them was a famous brand bag with a price of hundreds of thousands of yuan. Although they had been used for a few years, they could be exchanged for some money. The next day, Yu Lily went to the local luxury goods market with her bag. After some haggling, Yu Lily sold 5 bags and got a total of 318,000 yuan. Out of the market, Yu Lily only had a red bag left, which was the cheapest of all her bags. Probably because she had used it for a long time, and suddenly sold it all, Yu Lily felt a little empty. She picked up the phone and called Li Da, but no one answered the phone for a long time. She simply ignored it and took the subway home, but found that there were a lot of people around the door. Wasn't the direction that everyone was surrounding the small apartment where she lived? Yu Lily's heart was inexplicably thumping, and she quickly walked up and asked, "What's wrong?" As soon as she walked into the door, she found that everything in the whole house had been scattered. The sofa was scraped open, and the springs, cotton, and sponge inside all leaked out. The glass coffee table had been smashed into smithereens, and the computer on the computer table had been broken into 2 pieces, exposing the motherboard inside. The ground was covered with glass shards. It was an unsightly sight. Yu Lily looked inside incredulously. The wall was sprayed with graffiti. "Shameless mistress. Seducing someone else's husband. Shameless." There was also a big clown at the back. Suddenly, Yu Lily strode in. The door to the room was not closed. As soon as he entered, he saw that it was a bed. The bedding and pillows were all wet. The photos that were hung all over the wall were all smashed and fell to the ground. Yu Lily stood at the door and couldn't believe what she saw. Walking in step by step, Yu Lily looked down at the photos. Unknowingly, his vision had already turned blurry. The broken glass photo frame was scattered all over the place. As for the photos, they were all lying on the wet ground. Every single photo had been sprayed with graffiti spray. The picture that was originally clear could no longer be seen. Chapter 778. Squatting down and looking at it, Yu Lily's eyes filled with tears suddenly fell down. What should I do? The photo frame was still the same photo frame she was familiar with, but the images of her happiness were completely gone. What should I do? Suddenly, Yu Lily suddenly remembered that the table in the room was gone. On the table, there was a thick diary. That book had recorded many of her feelings. Yu Lily looked back and found that the body on the table was lying quietly on the ground. As for the diary, it had already disappeared without a trace. Under the bed, under the wardrobe, there was nothing. Yu Lily opened the wardrobe and found that all the clothes in the wardrobe had been sprayed with wax. The wardrobe was full of clothes, with few famous brands and decent clothes that she had bought over the years. The clothes that she had carefully protected all these years were in her own home, in her own wardrobe, and not a single part of them was left intact. Looking at the wardrobe full of colorful wax, Yu Lily stood there slightly stunned. The onlookers outside had come in. Aunt Zhao, the neighbor, saw her like this, and her face was full of sympathy. She said, "Girl, call the police. There are cameras in our community. These bastards will definitely be punished." "Yes, it's too much. How can they bully people like this? I don't know how they got in. What are the security guards doing?" The noise was louder and louder. In Yu Lily's small and messy house, it was particularly noisy. Taking out the mobile phone from her bag, Yu Lily did not call the police first, but pressed the one button. Soon the call page popped up, and the 3 words, "Oh," jumped into her eyes. Seeing these 3 words, Yu Lily's sadness and pain in her heart became more and more turbulent. Why did this happen? This wasn't the situation she wanted. She shouldn't be like this. After leaving Ming, she should live like a proud peacock. She should let Ming see that his canary wouldn't die without him. One day, she could also be successful and stand by his side. Whenever people mentioned Yu Lily, it was no longer Yu Lily, the woman who was kept by Ming. Instead, he thought, Yu Lily is a very powerful person. She's just right for Ming. It should be like this. Why did it turn out like this? Looking at those 3 words, Yu Lily's tears broke the dam and flowed down like a torrent. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, and the countdown on the call screen began. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Ming was socializing. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was a completely unfamiliar number from the imperial capital. Ming had wanted to ignore it, but for some reason, he couldn't help but think about what his assistant had said about Yu Lily. Yu Lily of the capital. His partner's voice faded into the distance. Somehow, he picked up the phone. However, there was a lot of noise coming from the other side. All kinds of voices gathered together, and it was impossible to hear what was being said. Oh Ming didn't say anything. He held the phone and listened to the voice on the other side. However, he didn't hear a voice from the other side. Instead, he heard a low sniffling sound. Chapter 779. There was a moment of silence, and neither side spoke first. Because Oh Ming picked up the phone, the partner did not speak again, quietly waiting for him. Yu Lily heard the silence on the other side, and finally couldn't help but sob softly. Oh Ming had already guessed who it was, but when he heard the voice, he still couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. It's her. She finally came to me. Yu Lily owed a lot of debt, and she had no way out. But she came to me again because of money. Because of the dirty and stinky money. Hundreds of thousands was just pocket change for him, but it could force the treasure in his hands to this point. How ridiculous. Oh Ming tightened his hand, and in his dark brown eyes, there was an indescribable complexity, layer by layer obscure. After a long while he asked, "Who is it?" The two words of indifference and alienation were like a cold arrow piercing Yu Lily's heart. Her hand trembled, and she took the phone in front of her and hung up. The call lasted for 1 minute and 33 seconds. It was a short time, but for Yu Lily, it was like several centuries. Distant. Alienated. Taking a deep breath, Yu Lily called the police. The phone was busy. Oh Ming's dark brown eyes seemed to be covered with several layers of flying sand, and it was difficult to see the real emotion in them. Nothing said. Looking at the strange number, Oh Ming pressed the new contact. Nickname note. Bitch. Master O, if there is no problem, let's sign the contract. I hope we can cooperate happily. Oh Ming put the phone away, and a polite smile gathered on his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. He took the contract and read it page by page, but his mind was muddled. In the end, he couldn't read it patiently, so he signed his name. I have something urgent, so I have to go. Xiao Zhou. Entertain Mr. Wang. Oh Ming stood up. He was tall, and when he stood up, there was a sense of pressure. Yes. Oh Ming strode out of the box, picked up the phone, and dialed the assistant of the capital branch. Check the status of Yu Lily. Su Cheng was stunned and asked, "Now?" Yes. Yes. When the police arrived at the apartment, they took a look and finally determined that it was malicious damage to private property. He checked the surveillance cameras and found that the people on the left bank were all wrapped up tightly. Their faces could not be seen at all. They were also wearing hats. They were not familiar people. They had used the keycard to open the door when the security guard was not paying attention. Yu Lily insisted that it must have something to do with Li Da or his wife. The police searched through the night and led Yu Lily to the hospital to find her. Li Da was eating with his wife. After hearing about Yu Lily's situation, he sneered and said, "It seems that someone couldn't stand it and helped me get revenge. Or, you seduced more than my husband, so someone retaliated against you." Yu Lily was so angry that she laughed and said, "Do you think that hiring someone to make trouble for me is flawless? Apart from you, I can't think of anyone else who would take revenge on me. If you're so capable, why don't you be a little prettier? You're ugly, yet you're causing trouble." Mrs. Li was so angry that her eyes turned red. She roared, "Bitch, don't go too far." Chapter 780. What is it? I don't know. You have to have evidence to prove it. Mrs. Li crossed her arms. Seeing her like that, she felt an indescribable joy in her heart. With a sympathetic look, she shook her head and said, "It seems that those things are very important to you. Although I don't know who did it, they did a good job. This is how to deal with bitches." Yu Lily didn't believe it and repeated, "Give it back to me." "Not with me." Mrs. Li smiled happily. "Only God will punish the wicked." "Good job. Mrs. Li, is it convenient for you to show us your phone?" A police officer stretched out his hand. It sounded like a question, but his tone did not allow for a response. Mrs. Li snorted and said, "Of course, take a look." She took out her mobile phone and threw it. The police officer caught it firmly. "Password." Mrs. Li told the password. The police officers looked at her text messages, call records, and various social media, but they didn't find any similar traces. "Do you have any other mobile phones?" "No, my mobile phone has a dual card. Who needs so many mobile phones these days?" Mrs. Li was a little impatient and took the mobile phone back. "What about yours?" Yu Lily looked at Li Da, who was lying on the bed without speaking, and said, "Take out your mobile phone." At the scene, everyone's eyes fell on Li Da. Yu Lily clearly noticed that there was a subtle change in Mrs. Li's look. She was more sure and looked at Li Da and said, "Mr. Li, please take out your mobile phone." Mrs. Li stood in front of Li Da's bed and said, "His mobile phone was broken in the car accident, and he hasn't bought a new one." "Impossible." Yu Lily's eyes were sharp, staring straight at her. "How long has it been? Even if it's broken, it's impossible not to buy a new one. Moreover, the phone is not broken at all. I saw it on the bedside table yesterday. It's perfectly fine. You don't dare to take it out now. Is it because you have a guilty conscience?" Mrs. Li was angry. "Do you have to be so aggressive?" "Mrs. Li, it is you who is aggressive. My loss, I have roughly calculated, has reached up to 200,000 yuan. My clothes, computer, furniture in the house, and some things that cannot be measured by money are not what you can afford." Yu Lily's eyes were redder, and her voice was sonorous. "Please, take out your mobile phone." The police officers also noticed that Yu Lily was emotional. They reached out to comfort her and reached out to Li Da. "Mr. Li, take out your phone." Mrs. Li's expression changed slightly and looked at her husband with uncertainty. However, Li Da's face darkened to the extreme. He said, "I told you, I don't have a cell phone. Come and search me." Yu Lily was furious and shouted, "Get up! He must be hiding in the bed. You don't have the right to do this. I said we don't have it, so we don't have it. I'm a good friend of your Chief Zhao. Do you dare to search?" Li Da's voice was loud and full of energy. The two police officers looked at each other in dismay, but in the end, they didn't do anything. To say the least, even if it was Li Da who did it, Li Da would not admit it. Maybe he would use some means to put Yu Lily in jail. At that time, if they were also targeted by the higher-ups, it would be troublesome. Chapter 781. But before she got close, she was grabbed by Mrs. Li and shouted, "You still want to seduce my husband? Get out of here, bitch." Yu Lily was dragged out. Mrs. Li saw her beautiful and delicate face and felt even more jealous. She reached out and slapped Yu Lily hard. Yu Lily couldn't avoid it and was slapped hard in the face. Then before she could recover, she was pushed by Mrs. Li and fell to the ground. The police officers immediately ran up and gave Mrs. Li ideological education and warning. However, they had no intention of letting Li Dajiao take out the mobile phone. Yu Lily covered her face, got up and was about to hit back, but was stopped by two police officers. Under Mrs. Li's proud and comfortable gaze, Yu Lily was pulled out. As soon as she got out of the ward, Yu Lily shouted, "She hit me, police! You saw that woman hit me!" "Enough! Didn't you scold them very well?" The police's face was very ugly. "Now it's an eye for an eye, but I advise you not to go against them. You have no background at all. This is very deep. If you have money, you should pay the money quickly. If you don't have money, I'm afraid you will really go to jail." Yu Lily suppressed a night of grievances, suppressed for several days, suddenly like the Yellow River bursting its dike, crazily rushed out. With tears rolling down, Yu Lily couldn't help crying. Why can they bully people like this? Why should I be bullied like this? Just because I am an orphan, just because I have no background? It's obvious that they did it. Why don't you investigate it? It turns out that you are also officials protecting each other. I thought this was something that only existed in ancient times. What absolute justice? Bah! Yu Lily's voice was not low, and it was particularly loud in this quiet hospital. The two police officers quickly dragged her away. After leaving the hospital, they looked at each other and looked at Yu Lily sympathetically and guiltily. They said, "Miss Yu, I wish you good luck." "I wish you good luck." Could she be even more unlucky now? She was inexplicably molested, so she lost her job and was falsely accused of being a mistress. She owed a lot of debt, and now she couldn't go home. Could he be even more unlucky? "If you have the guts, let me go out and get hit by a car again." Yu Lily stood at the entrance of the hospital and shouted. Her voice was nasal. Little did he know that his every move had fallen into the eyes of another person. Su Cheng saw this and quickly called O Ming. He reported Yu Lily's current situation, and all he got was a long period of silence. Su Cheng waited for O Ming's reply without saying anything. After a long time, Ming ordered, "Continue to follow them and report back if anything happens." Yes. It was past 10 at night. Fortunately, there was still a subway to go back. Lily took the subway back, but when she got out of the station, she found that the balance of the bus card was insufficient. Left with no choice, he could only top up his ticket at the service counter before leaving. Back home, Lily tidied up and found that her clothes were basically scrapped. Fortunately, the clothes that were hung outside were still intact. Although there was only one set, there was at least one set that could be changed. She tidied up the house and threw away the mattress and pillows that had been splashed with water, as well as the furniture that had been almost completely destroyed. Chapter 782. After throwing out the last bag of garbage, Lily looked at the empty house and felt sad. Suddenly, there was the sound of someone pressing the doorbell. Looking through the peephole, it was the landlord. Lily felt a little surprised. The landlord lived a little far away. Did he come to watch the scene in the middle of the night? The landlord was a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. As soon as he entered the door, he exclaimed. He looked at the door lock and the door panel and found that they were badly damaged. The furniture, wardrobe, walls, and kitchen were all destroyed. The landlord's face became more and more ugly. He looked at Lily and said, You have lived here for several years. Have I been good to you?" Lily had already lowered her head with guilt. When she heard this, she immediately felt that something was wrong. She looked up at the landlord with some confusion in her eyes. "Originally, I let you live in because I saw that it was not easy for a girl like you. Moreover, you love cleanliness and will cherish my house and furniture. Now, you have provoked someone and destroyed the house like this. All the furniture is gone. I have suffered a great loss, little you. Hey, look at your house, you can't sleep tonight. You pack up and get a room to sleep. You just paid more than 8,000 yuan a few days ago. In fact, it is not enough for me to replace the furniture. I have to decorate the floor and the walls. Forget it, you can go like this. You don't have to pay for other things." The landlord waved his hand and sighed. Lily was even more shocked and exclaimed, "How can you do this? I think I have been good to you over the years, but of course, you have to pay for the hatred you have provoked. I won't ask you for the decoration costs. Go." Lily's throat was sore, and her eyes were red. She almost couldn't help crying. Seeing this, the landlord just shook his head and sighed, saying, "Little you, it's not that I'm cruel, but I can't explain it to my wife. You should prepare yourself. I'll call someone to clean up the house tomorrow." With that, he turned around and left. Looking at his back, Lily's heart was empty. Lily packed her things in a daze and found that the remaining usable things were not even half full of the suitcase. Dragging her suitcase, Lily walked on the street in a daze. There was a 5-star hotel across the street from the neighborhood. It cost more than 700 yuan a night to stay in. Lily just glanced at it and skipped it with her suitcase. After walking for a long time, he finally found a cheap hotel that cost 100 yuan a night. After moving in, Lily realized that the place was not just any ordinary shabby place. The soundproofing was so bad that even the creaking sound of the bed next door could be heard. The woman's moans and the man's low growls reached Lily's ears, which made her even more upset. Lily didn't dare to sleep on the bed directly, so she used the clothes she had worn before lying down. Lily threw the quilt on the floor and covered herself with a slightly thicker layer of clothing before lying down. After the noise from next door stopped, everything finally quietened down. Late at night, it was silent. Suddenly, his phone rang. He had received a text message. "Hello, miss you. I am Officer Zhou who dealt with you today. Mr. Li's list has been sent to you through WeChat. You need to pay a total of 495,629 yuan. Please negotiate with the other party as soon as possible." Looking at the text message, Lily wrapped herself in her clothes and laughed. Her tears fell down uncontrollably. Chapter 783. She didn't know when she fell asleep, and her memory returned to Kingstown many years ago. The night was boundless, and the first 2 floors of Star City were the biggest entertainment venues in Kingstown. Luxury and debauchery, indulgence, and extravagance. Lily was taken to a beautiful and luxurious private room, which was decorated in a beautiful ancient European style, and beautiful and hot women stood side by side with her. The private room was full of men, and everyone's expression was lustful and picky as if they were looking at goods. Lily, who was 17 years old, still had a young face, but her body had grown a little. The red strapless dress made her white and delicate skin more beautiful and charming, with a touch of youth and sweetness. Seeing Lily, many people's eyes lit up. They stared at her with undisguised naked eyes, which made Lily feel a little scared, and she desperately shrank back, trying to reduce her sense of existence. Lowering her head, Lily wanted to escape, but she was immediately pushed in by a sister, who whispered, "Get used to it. Don't be afraid. A virgin like you is the most valuable. Let's see if you can hold on to a good thigh today. After you are proficient in the business, you will soar to the sky." This is how Lily emboldened herself, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and silently hid behind. Madame Mulberry had no time to care about her, smiled flatteringly, and said to the man who laughed the most happily in the crowd, "Mr. Zhou, here are all the girls who are free tonight, and there are a few new girls. Which one do you like?" The man who was called Mr. Zhou's face immediately changed, and said, "Don't you understand? Master O is here, and I don't have the right to speak first." Then he looked at the deepest part of the crowd. A very young man, holding a glass of wine, leaned on the sofa, out of place with the surrounding atmosphere. There was no woman around him, and no one approached within 5 meters of him. The man who was called Master O was leaning lazily, without any intention to get up, but a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes, in the bright yellow light, looked particularly intoxicating, and his eyes fell with great interest on Lily, who had been retreating. When Lily met his gaze, she shivered and shrank back. O Ming held the wine glass and pointed at the girl, who was desperately trying to shrink back to reduce her presence. His interest was aroused and he asked, "Are you an adult?" Everyone could see that he was looking at Lily. Mama Mulberry smiled and went to the crowd to pull her out. She smiled and said, "It's done. You're just 18. As soon as she came out, the naked eyes around her fell on her unscrupulously. Lily was so scared that her face turned pale. She said in horror, No, I'm only 17. Then she looked at Hao Yu for help and said, "Sister Hao, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd better be a waitress, Sister Hao." For a moment, all eyes fell on the young and beautiful Hao Yu. Hao Yu looked a little embarrassed and said, "It's your blessing that Master O likes you." Lily was so scared that she almost cried. She didn't know where to put her hands. In front of these experienced people, she seemed a little nervous and restrained. However, it was precisely this kind of little girl that aroused the interest of many people present. Chapter 784. The process of transforming a girl into a woman was undoubtedly very wonderful. Such a girl was a virgin at first glance. Who wouldn't like it? However, it just so happened that this man had taken a liking to her. Everyone looked at Lily and O Ming. O Ming put down the wine glass in his hand and waved at her. "Come here." Lily was a little resistant, and her mom gave Hao Yu a look. Hao Yu was also a little embarrassed. She gently pushed Lily and said, "Go ahead. Don't you want to go to school? You can't even pay the tuition now. How can you catch up with that person? Go ahead. Don't forget that you still owe me money." Lily was a little reluctant. She looked up and found that the man over there was still looking at her. That pair of eyes is so beautiful. That eye shape is called peach eyes. When I draw, I like to draw that kind of eyes. Very beautiful. O Ming looked at her sideways with a wicked and beautiful smile on his lips. Sitting quietly and looking at him, Lily had an indescribable feeling. This man is a bit deep. Lily did not move. No matter how you pushed her, Lily was not willing to go over. "Hey, little girl, your service attitude is not good. Didn't you say you want to be a waiter? How can you be a waiter if you don't serve the customers well?" Mr. Zhou was a little angry and shouted, "Go over." Lily still did not move. Mr. Zhou sneered, took out the leather armor, and bought a large stack of money. At a glance, there were at least a few thousand. "Go over, these are all yours." Lily looked at the red banknotes and was a little tempted. However, if she went over, wouldn't it be selling herself? How could it be? She just wanted to earn the tuition. Sister Hao said that the salary of a waiter here was high. When she first came, she didn't know anything. She thought that a waiter would serve tea and wine, wipe the table, and entertain the guests, just like a waiter in ancient times. But who knew that to do this kind of service? If she had known, she would not have come. Feeling distressed, Lily glanced at him, but still took a step back and said, "I don't want to do this, You all go out." Ming suddenly said and stood up. Lily was inexplicably flustered. Seeing Ming's approaching footsteps, she was so frightened that she shrank back. The women behind him had good eyesight. Of course, they all knew that young Master O's status was the highest among these childs. After Lily was pushed back, there were fewer and fewer people in the private room, and all of them had left. Lily also wanted to go out, but she was pushed back one by those who wanted to go out. "Sister, how?" Lily cried out for help. "I don't want to do it anymore." "Can't I?" How looked back and said with some guilt, "Little you, when you just came, you signed the contract." Then, the private room door was closed. Lily tried to pull the door of the private room and hit it hard. Tears of fear immediately gathered in her eyes. The sound of leather shoes came from behind her. Lily turned around and found that the young and handsome man was already in front of her. On Ming's face, there was an incomprehensible evil aura. Chapter 785. Ming held a cup in his hand, with a pair of beautiful peach eyes full of interest. He slightly bent his eyes and asked, "What's your name?" Lily looked at the man getting closer and closer in front of her, swallowed, and quickly bowed her head and said, "You." "Full name?" "I'm Liu Carp." Ming heard that and chuckled. "Such a strange name?" Then he pulled her. "Come here." Lily's hand was caught, and the man's rough palm grabbed her. Inexplicably, Lily had a feeling of being electrocuted, and her heart was a little nervous. This hand was not the same as Liu Han's hand. Liu Han's hand was very rough, very big, and gave people a sense of security. This man's hand was also very big, but it felt different from Liu Han's. This was a pair of pampered hands, completely different from hers and Su Qianxi's. Being pulled to sit on the sofa, Lily was a little scared and shrank back to keep herself away from him. Ming did not care. His legs were crossed, and the movement naturally revealed a kind of noble aura. Lily suddenly felt a sense of shame. This man was so beautiful. It had nothing to do with her beauty, but it was something she was born with. There was an indescribable elegance in her gestures, as if she was born to be a noble, which made her feel a little ashamed. "How old are you?" 17. "Tell me the truth." 17. "Really?" "Well." Lily bowed her head with her hands on her legs, staring at her skirt. Ming poured her a glass of juice and asked, "Are you here to earn tuition?" Lily was shocked and looked up. "How do you know?" But after asking, she realized that you had just said it. Ming chuckled and said, "So young, you really shouldn't do this kind of thing. Are you in college?" "Yes, I was admitted to Kingstown University of Foreign Studies. Learning language. Computer. Not enough tuition?" "Not enough." Lily looked down. "I am an orphan, and I have to earn it if I want to go to school." Ming smiled and did not speak. In the back, Lily and Ming were sitting on the sofa. Lily was in a daze, while Ming was playing games on the game console. After sitting for a long time, Ming stood up and said, "Let's go eat together. I'm hungry." Lily was stunned and a little confused. She didn't know what he meant. She followed him out in a daze. Lily had never eaten such a delicious meal. He had never been to such a high-class place. As he ate, he smiled at her and asked, "Is it delicious?" As Lily ate, she smiled and nodded. "Delicious. Then, I'll bring you here often in the future." Ming smiled, which scared Lily out of her wits. Later, Ming settled her contract with the entertainment place and let her live in his house. He paid for her tuition, bought her a lot of beautiful clothes and a lot of beautiful bags, and took her to eat delicious food. At first, she thought she had met a good person and thanked him profusely. Ming smiled wickedly and said to her, "It's good to be grateful. Don't worry, when I grow up and earn money, I will definitely return the money to you." Chapter 786. In order to save money at the beginning of the semester, Lily did not live on campus. If she did not live on campus, She could save more than 1,000 yuan a semester, so she simply continued to live in Ming's villa. In Ming's words, it was empty anyway. Later, Lily learned that the villa Ming let her live in was much more expensive. At that time, she had no concept of holidays in Kingstown. She lived alone in this big villa for half a semester, and no one knew that she lived in such a place. However, one day after class, Lily went directly to the restaurant where she worked. When she got off work, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. She returned to the villa with a few bags of instant noodles. When she opened the door, she found a pair of men's shoes at the door. While she was shocked, she also smelled the fragrance coming from inside. So fragrant. Just like the Western food that Ming once took me to eat, so fragrant. Holding the instant noodles, Lily shouted, "Mr. O? Is that you?" A subtle voice came from inside, and then a man's voice sounded, "Well, it's me." Lily breathed a sigh of relief. After changing her shoes in the hallway, she walked in. Ming was sitting in the dining room, and his big hand was opening a takeaway box. Lily came over, smelled it, and exclaimed, "It smells so good. Did you buy it?" "Well, wash your hands and eat." Ming opened the lid and saw her smile. He raised his red lips, looked around, and saw the shopping bag in her arms. "What did you buy?" "Instant noodles." Lily picked it up and shook it with a proud face. "It's easy to be hungry in the middle of the night. I can eat some instant noodles, which saves me time and money." Ming's face was not very good. He grabbed the shopping bag, threw it aside, and said, "You eat this kind of thing when you're hungry? Don't you have a job? Why do you keep the money?" Lily's face was a little red. She lowered her head and whispered, "I want to save it. When I save more, I will give it back to you." Ming's face softened a little. He looked at her and suddenly smiled. The curve was slanted with evil charm, which made Lily blush. He ordered, "Go wash your hands." She nodded her head and obediently went to wash her hands. Then, she took the fork that Ming handed to her. Lily took a piece of spaghetti and ate it. She was hungry, and she hadn't eaten anything like this for a long time, so she ate in a hurry. "Eat slowly." Ming's thin lips curved into a smile. He took one for himself and ate gracefully. Although Ming was a man, he had been raised well since he was a child. It was a simple meal, but it made him feel like he was eating at a banquet. And he, shockingly, was the emperor who was enjoying the Manchu Han imperial feast, naturally exuding an air of nobility. Lily blushed and lowered her head to roll the spaghetti. Her movements became slower and slower. Looking at him, Lily slowly followed suit. Ming sensed it but didn't expose it. After eating, he took out a napkin and slowly wiped the corners of his mouth, saying, "Girls should treat themselves better. If you were a little fatter, you would definitely be very beautiful." Lily's small face was only the size of a palm, and her eyes were big but a little dull. Because of lack of sleep, they looked a little hollow. Lily blushed again when she heard his words. She lowered her head and said softly, "Thank you." Chapter 787. So handsome. Lily's face was redder, and she felt a little short of oxygen. After cleaning the table, Lily didn't dare to look up. When she came back from throwing the garbage, Ming was not in the dining room. He was not in the living room, either. Lily was a little disappointed. However, just as she walked into the room, she heard footsteps coming from inside. Lily was shocked and shouted, "Who is it?" Ming looked out and stood at the door of the cloakroom, holding a bathrobe in his hand. "Who else can it be?" Lily blinked, looked at the clothes in his hand, and was a little surprised. "You? Well, from today on I will live here. But this is my room." After Lily said that, she felt a little embarrassed. It seemed that this was Ming's place, and she was just living temporarily. Ming didn't care and took the bathrobe into the bathroom. Lily quickly went into the cloakroom and opened the wardrobe. She found that half of the wardrobe was stuffed with men's clothes. Looking back, the sheets and bedding had been changed to men's dark color. The pillow that had been put away by her was put down again, and there were 2 pillows. "This is the rhythm of living with me?" Lily was stunned and suddenly felt a little disgusted. It turned out that he really had a purpose to be good to me. He still wanted that her. Lily felt a little lost. While he was taking a bath, she took the spare quilt and pillow from the wardrobe and carried them out of the living room. There were many rooms in the villa, but many of them were empty. Only the master bedroom had a bed. If Oh Ming was here, she had to sleep on the sofa. After making the quilt, Oh Ming came out while drying his hair. Seeing her behavior, his dark brown eyes were slightly deep, and he chuckled and said, "You Lily." You Lily jumped up reflexively and turned to see Oh Ming's black bathrobe. The beautiful and healthy lines were easily outlined, and Yu Lily's face turned red. Immediately turning back, Yu Lily's body was stiff, and her heart was in a mess. She said, "You, how do you know my name?" At that time I should have told him Carp. Oh Ming chuckled when he heard that. Inexplicably, he felt that this question was very amusing. His thin lips curled into a smile. He walked over and glanced at the quilt on the sofa. "I'll catch a cold if I sleep here. I'm not used to sleeping on the sofa." Yu Lily blushed even more and quickly waved her hand. "No, I didn't want you to sleep here. I'll sleep. You sleep in the room, and I'll sleep on the sofa. Girls can't sleep on the sofa. Let's sleep together." As he spoke, he grabbed her hand and frowned in disgust. "Where do you work?" Yu Lily reluctantly withdrew her hand. When she heard his question, she replied, "A Cantonese restaurant. The smell is so strong. Go take a bath. Don't go there again." "No, I have to work to earn money." Yu Lily's reaction was a little intense. She took her hand back, and her young face was red. "I want to make money. I owe you a lot of money. Wait a minute." With that, Yu Lily broke away from his hand and ran into the room. Opening the bedside cabinet, Yu Lily took out a book. However, before she stood up, she heard the sound of the door being closed and locked. Chapter 788. Really? Oh Ming felt a little surprised and reached out to take the book in her hand. "Let me have a look." Opening the book, Oh Ming saw the beautiful words inside at a glance. Everything was recorded, including food, clothes, and gifts. Oh Ming glanced at it and squatted down to check the drawer of the bed. Pulling it open, there was a paper box in it, which looked like the box he bought her new mobile phone. He opened the box, which was full of tags. They were all the clothes he bought for her, and the tags were all saved. With a chuckle, Oh Ming turned to look at her. Yu Lily met his eyes and shrank back. "You are young, but you have a lot of ideas." Oh Ming closed the lid of the box and said, "How are you going to exchange? Not only these things but many of them you have missed." Yu Lily panicked and asked, "What did I miss?" "I will register it right away." "And me?" Oh Ming looked at her with a smile. The three words made Yu Lily's heart suddenly panic, and she blushed and took a step back. "I am the only heir of the O group. Do you know how much I am worth?" Oh Ming took a step closer, and she was scared to take a step back. Shaking her head, Yu Lily's neck tendons were stiff, and she looked at him inexplicably nervous. Oh Ming raised his eyebrows and chuckled, with a faint smile on his lips, and approached her step by step. "I accompany you to eat, accompany you to school, and accompany you to shop for clothes. How much time is spent? You can calculate it yourself." Yu Lily looked blank, and she was so nervous that she held her breath. "What are you afraid of? I won't eat you." Oh Ming smiled and reached out to pull her. "Go take a bath, and then go to bed." Hearing this, Yu Lily swallowed and looked straight at Oh Ming with a pair of beautiful big eyes. She looked serious, but when the words came to her mouth, they became a nervous stutter. "I am not an adult, you can't do this, The more Yu Lily said, the hotter her face became. She bowed her head slightly, and her eyes were red. "I can't do this. What are you thinking about?" Oh Ming reached out and touched her head, laughing. "I just want you to take a bath. Go." What are you waiting for? You want me to wash it for you?" When Yu Lily heard that, her face burned even more. She picked up the pajamas she had just found and walked into the bathroom with her head down. Looking at her back, Oh Ming chuckled and muttered to himself, "What a cute little girl." When she came out of the shower, Oh Ming was sitting on the edge of the bed with a computer on his feet. Noticing that she had come out, Oh Ming ordered without looking up, "Come here." Yu Lily blushed and dried her hair. "My hair isn't dry yet." "Blow dry." Ming didn't look at her. His voice was simple and clear. After drying her hair in the bathroom, she didn't dare to go out. After the hairdryer stopped for a few minutes, Ming said, "Why aren't you coming out yet? Are you going to spend the night in there?" Lily's breathing suddenly quickened. She held the hairdryer with both hands, and her heart felt a little uncomfortable. She couldn't do this. She had to give her first time to the person she liked the most. Lu Yihan had not agreed to be her boyfriend yet. How could she give herself to another man? Chapter 789. Ming's voice was threatening. Lily was so scared that she quickly pulled out the hairdryer and walked out with it. The man was still leaning against the bed, looking at her with a faint smile. I have to say that this man is very good-looking. But he seems to be a little old. Lily silently disliked him and put the hairdryer back. Ming waved to her. Come here and see how it is. Lily took a deep breath and moved over there with small steps. The bed was very big, and Ming was in the middle of it. No matter which side she went up from, she had to climb onto the bed to see his computer. What a scheming man. Lily thought silently and climbed up gently, a little, a little, a little. Ming reached out and pulled her hard. Lily screamed and fell into his arms. A strong masculine smell came to her. The strange feeling and the strange tension surrounded Lily tightly. Looking at the front with a frightened face, Lily's heart was beating like thunder. But at the same time, there was an inexplicable sense of guilt for cheating. It seemed that she was cheating on him. Although Lu Yihan had not promised to be her boyfriend, how could she cheat on him first? However, before Lily had time to think more, Ming lifted her up, turned her head to look at the computer screen, and asked, "What do you think of this person?" "Nanny?" Lily was a little surprised. "Do you want to find a nanny?" "Yes." Lily's eyes lit up and looked at him. "What do you think of me? Shall I be your nanny?" Being his nanny, maybe the salary is very high. If that's the case, wouldn't I be able to return the money earlier? If I had known that Ming was going to move in, I would not have foolishly moved in. I should have known it. I was too naive. Now I feel like I live in a wolf's den. Ming met Lily's eager eyes and closed the computer. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Lily nodded, grabbed him with both hands and said, "I can cook. My friend is very good at cooking. He taught me. I can also clean and wash clothes." "Really?" "Yes." Lily nodded, her eyes shining. The corners of Ming's mouth lifted slightly, and he nodded. "All right, you can try it out tomorrow. If it's okay, I'll treat you to it." "Really?" "Yes." "Great." Lily cheered excitedly, but she suddenly realized that she was still in his arms. Lily blushed and struggled to get up, but Ming pressed her down and ordered, "Be a good girl and go to sleep. Tomorrow is Saturday, and your probation period will begin." "Okay. But I'll sleep on the sofa. Although you're much older than me, you're not married. I'm a girl. It's dangerous." Ming laughed, which made Lily's face even redder. She was a little angry and looked up to ask, "What are you laughing at? What are you thinking in that little head of yours? Go to sleep, lie down." Lily looked at him with uncertainty. However, Ming put the computer aside, turned off the light, and lay down. Lily was pressed down by him, but her body was still straight. She was ready to escape at any time if he moved. However, the night was peaceful. Chapter 790. Bang, bang, bang. The door was knocked, and Lily suddenly woke up. When she came back to her senses, she was still in the hotel. After sleeping for a long time, Lily felt a little pain and asked, "Who is it?" "It's time to check out. It's 12 o'clock. Don't get up." The tone was very bad, with a hurried knock on the door. Lily got up grumpily and got out of bed, shouting, I know, right away." The person outside just left, and then another knock came from the door of another room. After cleaning herself up, Lily quickly went out with her luggage. She found a convenience store and sat down. Lily asked for a bowl of noodles and a bottle of mineral water and sat inside. She now had 300,000 yuan with her, and she still needed 200,000 yuan for the compensation. There were only less than 3 days before the compensation. How could she get 500,000 yuan in 3 days? At this point, she could only borrow money. Taking out her mobile phone, she opened WeChat, looked at the address book, hesitated, and sent a WeChat message to Xueqi. You Lily. Chanqian, are you there? After sending it, Yu Lily felt a little regretful. When she was ready to withdraw, she saw the logo that the other party was typing. Xueqi. Yes, sighing in her heart, Yu Lily had to type. I want to borrow some money from you. But before she finished typing, Yu Lily's action paused. Xueqi was Li Xiqing's wife. And Li Xiqing was Ming's good brother. It was okay to borrow a little. But if she borrowed 200,000 yuan, she was afraid that Xueqi would be suspicious. If she told Li Xiqing, and Li Xiqing told Ming, what would happen to her? At that time, Ming would probably sneer and ask her, didn't you say you wanted freedom? Didn't you say you could live well without me? What are you doing? Just thinking about it, Yu Lily could imagine Ming's expression, and his sarcastic tone. Feeling suffocated, Yu Lily deleted those words one by one. Xueqi. Is there anything urgent? Seeing this, Yu Lily inexplicably felt a little depressed. Why did even Xueqi ask this? Was she the kind of person who would not ask for help if there was no urgent matter? Well, although it seemed to be true, Yu Lily was a little annoyed. She thought about it and replied, I will return the money to you. He clicked on the transfer button and clicked on 5,000 yuan. She quickly accepted the money and replied, okay, got it. Yueli, evil smile, Xueqi. Remember to ask me for help if you need anything. I will try my best to help you. Yueli, evil smile. I'll return that to you. Remember to look for me. Xueqi. Okay. Xueqi replied with the last word. Looking at the emoji sent by Yu Lily, she couldn't help but smile. Li Xiqing was eating. Seeing her like this, he came over and asked, who is it? It's Lily. Xueqi reached out her phone. The last time I went to Ireland to look for you, she borrowed some money from me. Now she is returning it to me. Li Xiqing glanced at it and was surprised. Borrow money? He must have met with an emergency, or he couldn't withdraw his money, so he borrowed some from me. She pushed him back. Eat your food. We will take the kids to Ocean Park later. I don't want to move. You feed me. No. I only ate 2 mouthfuls. I'm not full yet. Eat it yourself. Chapter 791. Xueqi looked around. Fortunately, the children had eaten and gone to play, and the elders were not here. She elbowed him and said, you starved to death. Eat it yourself. What a cruel woman, Li Xiqing sighed. I want to eat that rib. Xueqi pretended not to hear, but seeing that he really did not move, she pushed him away. Go away. I'm so hungry that I have no energy. Go away. Xueqi pushed him away, then picked up the chopsticks and picked up a piece of rib for him. Li Xiqing smiled triumphantly and took a bite. Yummy. Xueqi looked disgusted, but she couldn't help but smile. Mom, Dad, are you full? We still have to go to Ocean Park. Li Jianyue ran in with her short legs and saw that her mother was feeding her father. Her eyes widened and she said, is Dad a child? Why is Mom feeding Dad? Xueqi blushed and was about to speak. Li Xiqing said first, because Mom loves Dad, so she has to feed Dad. Xueqi blushed even more and glared at him. Don't teach bad things. It's the truth. Li Xiqing looked calm. I want to eat fish. Eat it yourself. It's too far. I can't reach it. Xueqi simply stood up and put the plate in front of Li Xiqing. Eat it yourself. Li Jianyue seemed to understand and asked, why does Mom love Dad, so she has to feed Dad? I love Dad too. I'll feed Dad. The couple laughed, and Li Xiqing said, Ursu, go play with your brothers. Dad and Mom will take you when they are full. Li Jianyue shook her beautiful princess dress and walked out the door with her short legs, grinning. Li Jianqian and Li Mosen were playing aeroplane chess in the front yard, rolling the dice and counting the squares. Li Jianyue ran out and shouted, brother, is it my turn? Li Jianqian did not look up and said, Mosen helped you. Li Jianyue sat down on a small stool, and her little face was pink. Is it my turn? It's your turn. Li Mosen handed the dice to her. Throw it. Li Jianyue took the die and threw it. When she saw that it was a 6, she cheered and started to lose. She was originally 5 steps away from the finish line, but in the end, she took a step back. He tossed it again and found that it was 1. Wow wow wow, I won. Li Jianyue jumped off the stool happily and jumped up. Then he ran inside and shouted, Mom, I won. But Mom and Dad were not in the dining room. While Li Jianyue was puzzled, Li Xiqing's voice suddenly came from inside. Ursu, get someone to drive over. Hearing that, the little boy immediately ran out. Uncle, hurry up and drive the car over. Turning her head, she saw Li Xiqing carrying Captain Li out. He blinked and shouted, Great-grandfather. However, the old man's eyes were closed and his withered and aged hands were hanging by his side. He did not open his eyes because of the little fellow's shouts. Su Chenxi's eyes were red with anxiety. Li Jianyue ran towards her and shouted, Mom, what's wrong with great-grandfather? Chapter 792. The patient may be under too much mental pressure. Has he experienced too many things recently? As his children and grandchildren, you should let the elderly relax a little. How can you let the elderly bear so much pressure? His blood pressure is a little high. Be careful not to stimulate the patient, and don't let the old man's imagination run wild. The doctor's words made them feel a bit strange. The old man had made great achievements in his life and was famous. He did not have to worry about food and clothing. Now he should be enjoying his old age. Why was he still under pressure? Su Chenxi did not understand, so she asked Li Xiqing. Li Xiqing seemed to know what the old man was thinking and said, It is probably about the Tang family. The Tang family? Su Chenxi felt a bit surprised, but soon figured it out. The Tang family and the Li family were old friends. The two families had been neighbors for several generations. Originally, the relationship between Captain Li and Captain Tang was quite good. But when it came to Tang Zhenghao and Li Zhao's generation, the relationship was not so good. When Captain Tang was alive, Captain Li and Captain Li had promised each other that they would treat each other's descendants well. But now the Tang family. Captain Tang only had one son, Tang Zhenghao, and Tang Zhenghao's son had died more than a decade ago. Now, not to mention a seedling, even the person was gone. This kind of situation had undoubtedly violated the promise between the two old men. So, that was why the old man was under so much pressure. Su Chenxi felt that she seemed to have figured it out. When she asked Li Xiqing, he just kept silent. When the old man woke up, it was already afternoon. Su Chenxi asked around and found that what the old man was thinking was not far from what she had guessed. The old man's face was haggard. He looked a little older than yesterday. He sighed. There are not many people left in the Tang family, and I killed Tang Menjing with my own hands. If I die, I am afraid old Tang will hate me. The old man's voice was full of self-blame and guilt. Su Chenxi felt a bit sad and called, Grandpa. Right, Qian. Captain Li looked up at Su Chenxi with his cloudy eyes. Can you help me call Xiao Lu over? Yihan. Su Chenxi was dazed, not expecting Lu Yihan to be mentioned. The old man nodded and lowered his eyes in guilt. I've let that kid down. Let him come over and let me apologize to him in person. He was the one who gave Lu Yihan hope. If it weren't for him, Lu Yihan wouldn't even dare to think about it. He thought Li Xiqing was dead, so he had done too many wrong things. Grandpa, wait a minute. I will make the call. She patted the old man's hand and dialed Lu Yihan's number. There was a type of person who wouldn't visit a temple for no reason. At noon, Lu Yihan was having lunch when he suddenly received a WeChat message. The sender was a name that he hadn't heard for a long time. You Lily. Lu Yihan, are you there? Lu Yihan. Yes. You Lily. Voice. I want to borrow some money from you. Lu Yihan. I know it's you. How much do you want? You Lily. 200,00200,000 was not a lot, but it was not a small amount. When Yu Lily typed this number, she felt nervous and complicated. She was afraid that he would refuse and ask. After all, in his heart, she was already unbearable. Would he think that she was trying to cheat him of his money? Chapter 793. 200,000 was neither a lot nor a small amount. However, people like Lily cared a lot about her reputation. If it was not a last resort, she would not come to him to borrow money. Thinking about it, Louis Han asked, "What do you need it for?" Yueli. "Well, it's a long story. I'm so unlucky." Louis Han. "Not good." Lily thought about it, and when she was about to explain, she received a message from Louis Han. There were only 2 words. Account number. Lily's eyes were hot, and she almost burst into tears. For people like Ming and Li Xiqing, this amount of money may really be just a fraction. But for Louis Han, who had just started his career, this amount was definitely not a small amount. However, he directly asked her for her account number, which made Lily almost burst into tears. She took out her wallet and sent the account number. While eating, Louis Han transferred money to her using his mobile bank account. After the transfer, he sent her a screenshot and said, "Done." Yueli. "Thank you very much. I will return it to you as soon as possible." Louis Han. "You are welcome." Louis Han. "Where are you now? Why haven't I heard from you recently?" Lily felt a bit ironic. Louis Han really did not care about her at all. She had left Kingstown for 4 years, and he actually said that he had not heard from her recently. Thinking about it, she replied, "I am in the south of the rosy clouds, beautiful Dolly, traveling." Louis Han. "I am so happy." Yueli. "It's just that I have been unlucky recently and encountered something. Hey, I will tell you more when I get back." Louis Han. "Okay." Lily breathed a sigh of relief. There was finally 500,000 in her card. However, the money she owed Louis Han had to be paid as soon as possible. What kind of work could make money quickly? In addition to selling her body, what else could she do to make money quickly? Lily took a sip of mineral water, rummaged through her bag, and found the white business card. Night Jungle Floor Manager. How you? After Louis Han transferred the money to Lily, he quickly finished his meal. His partner, who had a good relationship with him, came over, put his hand on his shoulder, and said, "Let's go out for a barbecue tonight and drink together." Okay. Louis Han put the phone away and closed the lunchbox. "Where are we going?" "The same place? Bring your roommate as well. That kid is quite fun. He doesn't look young anymore, right? Introduce him to a few girls." As he said that, he had a wretched smile on his face, as if saying, "You know what I'm talking about." Louis Han pushed him angrily and said, "Go away, he has a girlfriend, and now he has moved out to rent a place with her." "Really?" Her colleague obviously didn't believe it. "You're no longer single?" "Nonsense, why would I lie to you? You still have to find them and teach them some techniques to get rid of singlehood. I'll leave it to you. I'm going to ask someone else out." "He won't go." Louis Han made a direct conclusion, but he did not intend to contact Luo Zhan. His colleague looked displeased. "Then you should contact him too. Give me your phone. I'll make the appointment." Seeing the outstretched hand in front of him, Louis Han sighed and said, "Forget it, you go to ask someone else, I'll make the call." "Did you quarrel?" "What do I have to quarrel with him? Go away, I'll make the call." Louis Han found Luo Zhan's phone number and dialed it. Chapter 794. What the hell? Can't get through? Louis Han dialed again, and the result was still the same. The colleague came over again, and Louis Han deliberately turned on the speaker. "Look, I can't get through. The signal is not good. Let me do it." The colleague copied Luo Zhan's number and called with his own mobile phone number, but it was quickly connected. Hearing the classic ringtone, Louis Han was dumbfounded. The phone was quickly connected, and Luo Zhan's slightly frantic voice came over. "Hello. Look, it's a problem of luck. I got through as soon as I called." The colleague handed his mobile phone over. "Answer the phone." This subtle voice also fell into Luo Zhan's ears, and he asked angrily, "Who is it?" Louis Han clearly saw him in Ireland a few days ago, but hearing this voice, Louis Han felt that he hadn't seen him for a long time. Holding the phone, Louis Han felt a little embarrassed. When he met the colleague's urging eyes, he said, "It's me." He thought that there would be a different reaction, such as silence, hanging up directly, or starting to talk about the past.
However, to his surprise, there was an angry voice on the other side shouting, "Who are you?"
Louis Han was silent for a moment and said, "I haven't seen you for a few days, and you can't even recognize my voice?" On the other side, it was indeed Luo Zhan's voice. It didn't sound like he was unconscious, but how could he not recognize his voice? "You. Ah, this is Luo Zhan's mobile phone. What the hell, I thought it was mine. Wait a minute." The person on the other side seemed to shout, "Luo Zhan, brat, why did you put the phone in my room? Do you want to die?" Louis Han was silent for a moment, feeling that the scene was a bit strange.
The voice on the other side soon became louder, asking, "Who are you?"
It was indeed Luo Zhan's voice. Except for the tone, there was no difference from usual. Louis Han felt a little annoyed, laughed, and asked angrily, "Luo Zhan, do you cosplay?" Luo Zhan is dead asleep. He will ask who you are before deciding whether to answer the phone or not. Louis Han. Unable to talk anymore, Louis Han directly hung up the phone. About a few minutes later, the other side called again. The phone had fallen into the hands of a colleague, who glanced at it and threw it to Louis Han. Louis Han glanced at the phone number and recognized it was Luo Zhan's at a glance. Stunned, he answered the call.
Soon, a sleepy voice came from the other side.
"Hello? Who is it?" Hearing this, Louis Han was a little angry and said impatiently, "Hey, is it fun?" After a moment of silence, the voice seemed to have sobered up a little and said, "It's you. What's wrong? What's the matter?" In that case, he had recognized him.
Louis Han was even more annoyed.
"My colleague asked you to go to an outdoor barbecue tonight. Bring your girlfriend." "Girlfriend?" Luo Zhan was slightly taken aback, but he quickly recovered. "She's busy. What time is it tonight?" Acting. How could Luo Zhan have a girlfriend? Louis Han said in a bad tone, "I don't know. I'll let you know when the time comes. I'm busy. Bye." Luo Zhan quickly hung up the phone. After confirming that he hung up the phone first, Luo Zhan inexplicably felt a little happy. Lying down comfortably, Luo Zhan threw the phone aside, but he couldn't fall asleep. Louis Han actually asked him to go to an outdoor barbecue and asked him to bring his girlfriend? Suddenly sitting up, Luo Zhan grabbed the phone and dragged his number out of the blacklist. "Wan Lily, are you guys having a quarrel?" "Louis Han, some Luo Yi is so childish at such an old age, I can't stand it." Chapter 795. Louis Han continued to work. At about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he suddenly received a call from her. Seeing the two flashing words, Louis Han felt like he was dreaming. He was stunned for a moment before he picked up the phone. "Qian. Ihan, are you free?"
Louis Han glanced at the few lines of code on the computer and nodded.
"Yes. Come to the hospital. Grandpa wants to see you." "Grandpa wants to see me?"
Louis Han was even more surprised.
Since Li Xiqing came back, Captain Li had not come to him again. Louis Han understood, but he never expected that after more than a month, Captain Li would come to him again. "Yes. Which hospital? I'll be right there." Louis Han picked up the car key on the table and stood up. His colleague immediately felt that something was wrong and asked, "Where are you going? Hurry up and finish your work." "I'm going out for a while. I'll be right back."
Then, Louis Han was already out the door.
"Damn, this kid." Louis Han ignored the shouts behind him and quickly drove to Kingstown Military Hospital. After arriving at the ward that Su Qianxi mentioned, Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi were both in the room, and the children were also obediently staying in the ward. Captain Li was half sitting in the ward. When he saw Louis Han, he sighed. "Little Lu, you are here?" "Grandpa," Louis Han called. Louis Han felt sorry for the old man. This old man was a little older than the last time he saw him. Louis Han used to see him often, so he didn't think so. This time, after more than a month, he realized that the old man was not young anymore. "Xiqing, Qian, take the children out first. I have something to say to Lu." Li Xiqing glanced at Louis Han and nodded. Then he picked up his daughter and walked out. Louis Han and his grandpa stayed in the ward for more than an hour before Louis Han came out. Seeing him come out,
The eyes of the people guarding outside the ward all fell on him. "What did Grandpa say to you?" She looked at Louis Han and asked. Louis Han smiled and shook his head slowly. "This is a secret between me and Grandpa." Stepping forward, Louis Han patted Li Xiqing on the shoulder and said, "Take good care of Grandpa. I still have something to do, so I have to go." Li Xiqing looked at him with a faint smile. That smile made Louis Han very unhappy. Ignoring him, Louis Han put his hands in his pockets and strode away. When he returned to the company, he found that all his colleagues had left. On his computer, there was a note that clearly said, "We're going to look for a venue first. You can come over after you've finished your work." "Fine, I'll finish it first." Louis Han had no choice but to drop the key and continue his hard coding work. At about 7 o'clock, his phone rang. It was Luo Zhan. "Hello. Didn't you say we were going to barbecue outdoors? Where are we going?" Luo Zhan's tone was much better than in the afternoon. Louis Han snorted and said, "I don't know the number you called this afternoon. I'm in the company." "You're upstairs in your company? I just drove downstairs, you can come down." When Luo Zhan said this, his face unconsciously burned. He coughed lightly and said, "Don't get me wrong, I just want to go the same way." Chapter 796. Humph. What's the big deal? Luo Zhan hung up the phone unhappily and made the same phone call in the afternoon. After getting the address, he waited for another half an hour and still did not see Louis Han come down, so he drove to the place. He found that the scene was a get-together. There were several barbecue stoves, all of which were Louis Han's colleagues. There were all kinds of drinks and beers around, and there were more girls than he expected. Hot older women, cute Lolas, and hot and sexy stunners. At the moment he arrived, all eyes were focused on him. Seeing Luo Zhan, Lao Li immediately greeted him and shouted, "Xiao Luo, you are here." Luo Zhan was stunned, pointed to the beauties around him and said, "These are..." "Oh, they are the beauties in Xingfeng, which we cooperate with. What do you think? Beautiful, right?" Lao Li smiled and greeted several beauties, waved and said, "This is the famous domestic hacker I mentioned to you, Z. His real name is Luo Zhan." Then, Lao Li clearly noticed all kinds of hot eyes from the beauties around him. Lao Li suddenly thought of something, turned his head, and asked, "By the way, in the afternoon, I heard from Lu that you have a girlfriend?" "Really?" Luo Zhan smiled, facing the hot eyes around him, and nodded. "Really, it's just that my girlfriend is usually busy with work, so I didn't bring her out with me." "Well, I believe you." Louis Han's voice came from behind. Louis Han was shaking the key in his hand, which attracted many people's attention. Luo Zhan's body stiffened, and he turned his head to look. The street light behind Louis Han shone on his back, and he came against the light. With a sunny smile on his face, Luo Zhan suddenly felt a little dazed. It seemed, I haven't seen him for a long time. How could he be so much taller than me? Was he so tall before? Then, Luo Zhan looked down and found that Louis Han had changed his car to a Mercedes-Benz. When the girls saw Louis Han's figure, face, clothes and car, their eyes all lit up. "This is the boss of our company, Louis Han. You should know him, right?" Old Li introduced, looking a little indignant. "This guy is 26 years old this year, and he's still single. If my female compatriots fancy him, they'd better hurry up." As soon as he said that, the girls chatted even more enthusiastically, and many of them walked towards him. Luo Zhan shook his head, took a bottle of beer from the side, and sat on the side. Louis Han was pestered by the girls. With a smile on his face, he quickly said he needed to go to the bathroom and ran away. In the blink of an eye, Luo Zhan drank more than half a bottle of beer. He was also a little anxious, so he followed him to the bathroom. But before he walked in, he heard a woman's exclamation. A beautiful and sexy woman happened to bump into Louis Han at the door of the washroom. The bag in her hand suddenly fell to the ground, and the contents inside were scattered all over the ground. Mascara, foundation, eyeliner, wallet. Luo Zhan sneered. Trap. It was full of tricks. Chapter 797. Then the man apologized affectionately and said, "I didn't mean it." At this time, girls would blush, turn their heads and then... Damn! Luo Zhan cursed. Lu Yihan squatted down to pick it up, but the woman's level was much higher than Luo Zhan had imagined. Squatting down was fine, but she was showing cleavage. My God! Which man could stand it? No one noticed that Luo Zhan was watching. Lu Yihan looked straight ahead and said while helping her pick up the things, "Sorry, I didn't see you just now." The woman looked at Lu Yihan and said, "It doesn't matter. I saw you. You seem to be absent-minded. I had already avoided you, but you still bumped into me. Tell me, how do you want to apologize to me?" Damn. Luo Zhan deeply felt that he had underestimated the tricks of this world. Lu Yihan felt a little embarrassed and said, "Are you from Xingfeng?" "Yes." The woman quickly took the things and chuckled. "Thank you." She was about to stand up, but the high-heeled shoes seemed to twist, and then the woman fell into Lu Yihan's arms. Luo Zhan was stunned. He only heard the woman scream, holding Lu Yihan's hand with both hands, and rubbing Lu Yihan's arm with her surging breasts. What a coquettish bitch. Luo Zhan felt that he couldn't stand it anymore and strode out, but he heard Lu Yihan's voice. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just feel a little dizzy after squatting for a long time. I'll be fine after a while." Pretentious. What a pretentious bitch. Luo Zhan strode up and shouted, "Lu Yihan." Lu Yihan looked back and saw that he was obviously not very happy. He asked, "Are you looking for me?" "No." Luo Zhan glanced at the woman and said, "Don't you want to go to the bathroom? Let me help you. Your kidneys are already weak. Don't hold it in." The woman's face turned a little ugly, and she looked at Lu Yihan strangely. Kidney deficiency? He looked tall and powerful, but she couldn't tell that this kind of man had kidney deficiency. Under such a gaze, Lu Yihan's originally calm expression also cracked a little. Before he could speak, Luo Zhan reached out to help the woman. The beautiful woman hurriedly stepped back and said, "No need, no need. Mr. Lu, just go." "Io, you're not dizzy anymore?" Luo Zhan's tone was a little sharp, but after saying it, he realized that he seemed to be a little sarcastic. He coughed lightly and pretended to be happy. "That's great. Let's go back first. It always takes him a long time to go to the bathroom." "Luo Zhan." Lu Yihan's face darkened as he roared. Luo Zhan pulled the woman back and said, "You're welcome. This is what I should do." His footsteps were so fast that the woman stumbled and almost fell. "Are you Luo Zhan?" The woman obviously knew him and asked, "What's your relationship with Mr. Lu?" "Oh, we lived together for a while." "You don't live together anymore?" "Yes, this guy has too many bad habits. He doesn't like to be clean, he doesn't like to take a bath or wash his feet. More importantly, he doesn't like to flush the toilet. I can't stand it. He likes to sing every morning, and his singing is terrible. In the beginning, I tried to persuade him, but later I found that I couldn't persuade him, so I moved out. Sigh, this kind of person is unlucky." The woman looked understanding and smiled awkwardly. "That's not very good. Isn't it?" The few girlfriends he had couldn't stand him. "Oh, by the way, do you like him?" Wan Lily. "Gee, I didn't expect you to be like this, Lu Yihan." Chapter 798. The woman smiled, shook her head and said, "No, I just accidentally bumped into him." "I thought you were interested in him. Why don't you choose me instead of him?" Luo Zhan smiled with satisfaction. Before the woman said anything, he walked toward the crowd. The woman looked at Luo Zhan's back gratefully and muttered to herself, "He looks very tall and handsome. I didn't expect him to be such a person. Ah, what a pity." When Lu Yihan came out of the bathroom, many girls looked at him differently. Luo Zhan was drinking beer with Lao Li, and there was a girl sitting next to him. They seemed to be chatting very well. Lao Li thought that Lu Yihan must be the most popular person tonight, but who knew that the limelight was stolen by Luo Zhan? Lu Yihan was also at ease. He talked with his colleagues for a while. Seeing that more and more people surrounded Luo Zhan, he also walked over with a beer bottle. Luo Zhan was talking to a girl about watching a movie. The girl looked coquettish and shouted, "Little bunnies are so cute. Why do you eat little bunnies? It's too cruel." Luo Zhan laughed out and said, "Little bunnies are very cute.
Why do you also eat little bunnies? The crowd burst into laughter, and someone directly spat out a mouthful of beer. The girl blushed on the spot, stamped her feet, and said coquettishly, Luo Zhan, you are so bad. I said chicken. You can say little bunnies. Why can't I say little bunnies? Luo Zhan looked innocent and shrugged. Lu Yihan inexplicably felt a little uncomfortable. This guy was really easy to attract. So was he single just because he liked men? Otherwise, with his glib tongue, how could he not have a partner? Lu Yihan pouted, got up, took out the key, and left after saying goodbye to his colleagues. Looking at the time, it was only 9 o'clock in the evening. So boring. Lu Yihan drove past the famous bar street in Kingstown, but suddenly, he saw a familiar figure. At the moment, he was walking out with a girl, wearing a cool black leather coat, looking a little handsome. Suddenly stopping, Lu Yihan looked over. That figure, that face, was clearly Luo Zhan. However, wasn't Luo Zhan still barbecue outdoors? How could they get here so quickly? Moreover, he changed his clothes too quickly. He was clearly wearing a set of loser sportswear just now. Luo Zhan pulled, and pressed the girl against the wall. Then, he lowered his head and kissed her deeply. Surprisingly, the girl didn't resist. She hugged him with both hands and catered to him. After kissing for more than a minute, their movements became more and more passionate, and Luo Zhan actually put his hand under the girl's skirt. Lu Yihan's eyes widened and he cursed in a low voice. So open. Fortunately, the girl pressed his hand down and seemed to say something. Luo Zhan laughed, then pulled the girl up and walked down the stairs. The two soon walked to a nearby parking lot. Hey, this guy. Lu Yihan suddenly felt a little ridiculous. He had been so guarded against him these days. It turned out that Luo Zhan still liked women. However, that day in Ireland, Luo Zhan's expression did not seem to be fake. Could it be that this kid was a double? Chapter 799. Just when he was almost home, his phone rang. It was Luo Zhan. Lu Yihan snorted and picked up the phone. Hello. Luo Zhan's voice sounded not very sober. Did you drink too much? A little. I can't drive. Where are you? His voice did sound a little drowsy, but Lu Yihan didn't want to talk to him anymore. He drove the car into the underground parking lot and said lazily, I'm going home. How could you do this? Luo Zhan's voice became loud. You didn't say anything. I was drunk to death by these girls. Lu Yihan snorted, unfastened the seatbelt, opened the door and didn't care. I see that you are also having a good time. Let the girl just send you back, or the two of us can go to a room and have fun. That's all. Bye. Luo Zhan's phone was hung up. He scratched his head in annoyance and scolded, You have no conscience. Damn. Do you have to be so careful? Luo Zhan, what are you doing inside? The beauty is waiting for you. Lao Li shouted. Luo Zhan put away the phone and shouted, I know. In the luxurious bar, all kinds of beauties came and went. Some were enchanting, and some were energetic. Many men swept their eyes over the beauties, looking for their next target. Among them, a woman in a red dress was the most eye-catching. Many men at the scene were attracted by her, which made her unhappy. Her white and tender legs were crossed, sitting on the high bar chair. Under the red dress, it was dazzling and dazzling. A young and handsome man came over with a slender and beautiful crystal glass, sat down next to the beauty, ordered a glass of Bloody Mary, and then looked at the beauty, thinking that he was handsome. Beauty, you don't look very good. Are you alone? Yu Lily turned her head and looked over. Her beautiful eyes turned slightly, and she ignored him. The man was not discouraged and chuckled. Is it convenient for me to sit here? Aren't you already sitting here? The man laughed. My name is Shen Jilia. What about you? Why should I tell you? Yu Lily gave him a flirtatious look, which was even more enchanting. Mr. Shen, when you see a beautiful woman, will you seduce her like this? No, no, no. When I make friends, I never look at appearances. Shen Jilia suddenly reached out and moved his hand to Yu Lily's ear. Yu Lily was shocked and was about to avoid it when she suddenly heard a soft sound in her ear. She turned her head and saw a bright red rose. Xueqi retracted his hand. Do you believe in fate? Some people only need a glance to confirm that it's you. As he spoke, he gave her the rose in his hand and smiled brightly. What's your name? Yu Lily smiled, took the rose and said softly, Li Xiaoyu. Li. Or Li. Little fish of dawn. What a cute name. The bartender at the bar handed over the prepared Bloody Mary. Try the specialty here. It's a very special wine. When Yu Lily saw the wine, she laughed to herself. This wine didn't smell like alcohol at first, but it had a strong after effect. Many people used this wine to deceive some girls who were not very sensible, and then they could do whatever they wanted. Chapter 800. Bloody Mary, the Nobility of Wine. Xueqi winked. Yu Lily smiled, pushed the wine back and said, I'm sorry, I like red wine. How about a bottle? Yu Lily gently put her hand on Xueqi's hand and tempted him. How about a bottle of 82 Lafite to take away? Such a stunner, such a stunning beauty. Who could resist? Xueqi felt his throat tighten, touched her hand and asked, Where to? Yu Lily looked calm, looked at him and pushed him back. Didn't you just want to take me away? Xueqi smiled, nodded, looked at the person at the bar and said, 82 Lafite, do you have it? Yes. Soon, the bartender took out a bottle and handed it to them. While Xueqi was paying the bill, Yu Lily got down from the high bar chair and whispered, I'm going to touch up my makeup first. Wait for me for a few minutes. Xueqi believed it, looked at her affectionately, and nodded. Okay. Yu Lily grabbed her handbag and walked slowly, but when she turned the corner, she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. She took out her mobile phone and walked quickly to another safe passage. She opened WeChat and found a contact. Before she sent a message, the money was transferred. Seeing the 3,800 yuan, Yu Lily smiled and walked out of the bar in a good mood. A flashy Ferrari was parked at the door of the bar, but neither the windshield nor the doors on both sides could see what was going on inside. Yu Lily just glanced at it and walked away indifferently. Inside the Ferrari, a pair of eyes were always on her, watching her leave. Su Cheng watched her leave, glanced at O Ming in the passenger seat, and said, Mr. O, Miss Yu has paid off all the debts. I checked her transfer records. It seems that she borrowed 5,000 yuan from Li Xiqing's wife before. Later, she sold a few bags and got more than 300,000 yuan. After paying off Mrs. Li's money, she borrowed 200,000 yuan from a man named Lu Yihan. It has been more than a week. The pressure around O Ming was getting lower and lower, and he looked ahead with a cold face. Yu Lily's tall and slender figure in red looked beautiful and graceful. She's not working now? Yes. Every night I go to the bar. To be a wine tray. O Ming's face darkened, and he narrowed his eyes. A bartender? Yes. Yes, she seduced those rich men with her beauty, tricked them into buying expensive wine, and then ran away. I'm afraid she has succeeded, so now she has to go to another bar to work. Su Cheng's scalp was numb. He wasn't an ordinary assistant. When O Ming and Yu Lily were entangled, he had more or less heard about it. Later, when they broke up, O Ming became very hardworking, which Su Cheng saw. Unexpectedly, after 4 years, O Ming still couldn't forget that woman. This was not a good thing. Follow him. Yes. Su Cheng started the car and drove forward. The imperial capital was huge, and the bar street was especially long. The Ferrari was stopped by the security guards, so O Ming got out of the car and followed them. Chapter 801. O Ming walked slowly. Watching her flirting with other men, he sneered in his heart, but he did not go forward. Cheating, selling her face, selling her body, this woman really did everything. So cheap. O Ming looked at her and looked at the time. From the time she went to the bar to the time she said, I need to go to the bathroom. It took them less than half an hour to get there. Seeing Yu Lily walking in the direction of the bathroom, O Ming quickly followed her. However, as expected, Yu Lily did not go to the bathroom, but turned a corner and walked into the safety passage. It was very quiet in the safety passage, and the sound of Yu Lily's high heels could be heard. O Ming stood at the entrance of the safety passage and did not follow her in.
Standing at the door, Oh Ming lit a cigarette, blew a smoke ring, and laughed at himself.
What am I doing? Stalking my ex-girlfriend? Or stalking my ex-mistress?
In front of him was a reflective metal door. Oh Ming looked at himself inside, and after a while he sneered and whispered, "You are all so cheap." Yu Lily walked out of the bar, yawned, and looked at the money she had earned tonight. In the past week, she had earned nearly 100,000 yuan. With another 2,000 yuan, she could return 100,000 yuan to Louis Han first, and the big stone in her heart would not be so heavy. Looking at the time, it was already after 12 o'clock in the evening. Yu Lily stretched out and walked out of the bar street. But before she went out, she heard the sound of a steel pipe hitting the palm of her hand. Yu Lily stopped, looked at the bright outside, and did not dare to go out. He subconsciously stopped in his tracks and took a step back. However, someone suddenly shouted outside, "Stop!" Yu Lily's heart was even more shocked. She strode back and turned to escape. But suddenly, a hand reached in and pulled her out. Yu Lily shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" But the person who reached out to catch her did not have any pity, grabbed her and threw her to the ground. Yu Lily was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Her elbow was burning, and when she looked down, she found it had been rubbed. However, the light that shone on her body was immediately blocked by those tall figures. She looked up and saw 4 to 5 men with tattoos on their arms, each holding a steel pipe. They were looking down at her with sinister expressions.
What do you want to do?"
Yu Lily shrank back in fear.
"Help! What are you doing?"
"Shut up!" The men with big tattoos looked at her, and one of them was chewing gum. Suddenly, he spat out the gum and spat it on Yu Lily's head. Yu Lily exclaimed and quickly slapped away the chewing gum.
"Take out your phone."
A man reached out with a steel pipe in his hand.
"Isn't it easy to earn this kind of money?
So many fools have been taken advantage of by you so much that even their parents wouldn't be able to recognize them.
Feel good, right? Cell phone."
Yu Lily's body trembled, and she took out her cell phone with a trembling hand. The man took the cell phone and sneered, "Oh, it's the latest iPhone.
Unlock it."
Yu Lily unlocked the screen. The man clicked into WeChat and went straight to the WeChat wallet. He looked like he had seen a ghost and shouted, "Wow, more than 90,000 yuan. So much money you can spend it.
Anyway, it's so easy for you to earn money. Come on, tell me, what's the payment password?"
Death.
Chapter 802.
Yu Lily looked at them and gritted her teeth. "I need this money to pay off my debt. I owe hundreds of thousands of yuan. If I don't pay it, I will be beaten to death." Yu Lily looked at them with red eyes and looked like she was about to cry.
"Please, I'll give you half of it, okay? Leave some for me to eat."
"Oh, the little beauty is begging us, but you can rest assured that we only want money.
Be good, don't be rude. What's the password? Just transfer it to us."
He played with the phone and looked surprised.
"It turns out that you don't need a password. Come on, open the lock."
Then he pulled Yu Lily's hand forcibly.
"Good girl. I'll help you withdraw cash. Just give me the card. Tell me the password, and I'll get it myself."
Yu Lily grabbed her hand desperately, and her tears were about to fall. She shook her head and said, "I really owe a lot of money, and the date of paying off the debt is coming. You are forcing me to the road to death."
"Don't say that. We are all in the bar street. Who doesn't know each other? Look at your famous brands. Who will believe that you owe money?"
The big man sneered.
"I have been watching you for a long time. Several brothers have asked me about you. If you don't give me money, I will give you to the police.
You think you are a bartender, but in fact, you are a swindler.
What's the difference between you and us?"
As he spoke, he had pressed his finger on the middle button. The withdrawal was successful. Another man squatted down and grabbed Yu Lily's bag. After finding the card that had just been withdrawn, he asked, "What's the password?" Yu Lily looked at them, full of despair.
Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him.
This was the safe passage for employees to go to and from work.
At this time, there should be few people going in and out. Everyone turned to look at the passage.
Under the golden lights on the roadside, the passage looked particularly dim. There was smoke coming out of it. The smoke was very thin, and it was obviously the best tobacco. The sound of leather shoes came out, and everyone saw a straight and tall figure. Dressed in a burgundy checkered suit, he walked out leisurely, holding a cigarette between his long fingers. His eyes were slightly narrowed as he walked out. Slowly looking around, Ming slowly exhaled a mouthful of smoke and asked, "What are you doing?" Lily didn't look back, but when she heard the voice, her breathing suddenly quickened. Even her heartbeat seemed to suddenly slow down, and her back stiffened. She didn't dare to look back, but she could clearly sense that he was behind her. The wondrous feeling was like a tide surging over her head, robbing her of her thoughts and defeating her inch by inch. When the big flowery arms saw Ming, they all straightened up in displeasure and shouted, "Who are you?" Ming stood there calmly. Suddenly, his phone rang. His movements were neither too fast nor too slow, exuding a natural aristocratic aura. Ming picked up the phone, puffed out a smoke ring, and grunted in acknowledgement. "Behind the European First Day Bar, the safe passage is here." Ming's voice was not flustered at all, as if he was just chatting with the person on the phone. But when the person in front of him heard it, his face changed and he roared, "Hey, stinky boy!" Then, he swung the steel pipe out with a threatening face. Ming suddenly raised his eyes. His pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes seemed to flash with a sharp light, as if they were sharp blades. Such an attitude caused that person to laugh out loud in anger. He cursed, "Bastard!" He swung the steel pipe and threw it toward Ming's face. Authors Weibo, Uncle Juan Lily VIP Group. 5519499349. Chapter 803. Ming didn't seem to notice it. Lily exclaimed, "Be careful." Almost at the same time, Lily got up from the ground, but in a moment, she heard a dull bang sound. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the top of her head. She saw Ming reach out and hold the steel pipe firmly in his hand. He was unarmed, but he was not at a disadvantage. Holding the phone in one hand and the steel pipe in the other, he looked at the man with tattooed arms. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he seemed to chuckle. Then he twisted his big hand, and under the shocked eyes of the big man, he hooked his elbow up. While the big man's attention was on his elbow, Ming's eyes flashed with the light of success, and when the big man was unprepared, he kicked the man's weakest point. The big man screamed, bent down and covered his lower body, and his face changed dramatically. Such a scene made everyone's face change on the spot, and they stepped forward with the steel pipe. But Ming was not afraid at all, and his voice did not fluctuate at all. He said slowly, "Well, okay, by the way, bring the police here. There is a robbery here, and tell them that Ming asked them to come." Ming! Hearing these two words, everyone's expression changed, and the originally surging and powerful aura suddenly became dull. Ming didn't seem to notice the changes in front of him. He smoked the last puff of the cigarette, squinted his eyes, and threw the cigarette butt on the ground. His leather shoes gently stepped on it, and the fire disappeared under his shoes. "Wait a minute. You are Ming?" one of the big men asked. Ming squinted at him and did not answer. Instead, he stretched out his hand and said, "Give it to me." "WH. What? What did they take from you?" Ming looked at Lily and asked. Hearing this voice, Lily almost couldn't hold back her tears. There was a surge of heat in her eyes, but soon she calmed down and said, "Mobile phone and bank card." "Give it to me." Ming stretched out his hand and looked at them coldly. The big men looked at each other and finally handed the mobile phone and bank card to Ming. "Don't call the police, let's go right now." While speaking, he looked straight at the mobile phone in Ming's hand, which was still on the call page, with a little pleading in his eyes. Ming's eyes turned cold and he shouted, "Get lost!" They all heaved a sigh of relief at the same time, picked up the steel pipes and ran. Ming threw the phone and the card back to Lily and walked away. He actually didn't even look at her. Lily felt a little frustrated. She gritted her teeth and shouted, "Wait a minute." Ming acted as if he hadn't heard anything. His footsteps were light, but his speed wasn't slow. In 2 or 3 steps, he was already far away. She picked up the things and chased after him in her high heels. She shouted, "Ming!" The frequency of Ming's footsteps did not change at all as he strode forward. Lily was angry and roared, "Ming, stop right there."
Oh Ming's footsteps came to a halt. Oh Young Ming, stop right there. Such a tone, it was no different from how it was in the past. It was as if the person standing behind him was still the old Yu Lily. However, it was a pity. The Oh Ming of today was no longer the Oh Ming of the past. Chapter 804. Yu Lily looked at his determined back, and her heart ached. Her hands and feet had been thrown to the ground by the tattooed men just now, and they were still hurting. She looked down and found that the wound was not deep, but she couldn't keep up with them. She simply took off her high heels, ran up with them in her hand, and shouted, "Oh Ming, wait for me." However, Oh Ming acted as if he hadn't heard anything and continued to stride forward. Just as he turned a corner, he walked into a bar. Yu Lily quickly followed him in. Oh Ming walked straight in, and someone recognized him and greeted him directly, shouting, "Master Oh, you are finally here. Come here, sit here." Oh Ming was invited to a relatively remote and quiet sofa, on which sat 3 or 4 men, surrounded by beautiful women. Every one of them was hot and looked beautiful and sexy. Yu Lily followed all the way, and soon someone noticed her and asked, "Master Oh, this is... I don't know." Oh Ming sat down on the sofa and took the wine handed over by one of the men. When the man heard that, he had a look of understanding on his face. He saw Yu Lily holding high heels and wearing clothes that looked very good on the surface, but when he looked closely, he found that it was just a high-quality imitation. Even that pair of shoes had the classic snakeskin logo of Bulgari. This kind of shoes was relatively unpopular, but if she could wear it, it was undoubtedly fake. In all likelihood, she was some girl with a poor background and came to this kind of place to catch a rich man. However, she was really beautiful. Her figure was also good. She was petite and exquisite, and her skin looked tender. If she could have sex with him, it would be worth the money. The man thought he had seen through her, so he greeted Yu Lily, raised his eyebrows and said, "Hello, I am the second young master of Enling Group." However, Yu Lily ignored him, looked straight at Oh Ming and said, "I have something to say to you. Can you come out for a moment?" She had a lot of words to say to him. She had accumulated a lot of words for 4 years. In the past 4 years, there was not a day that she didn't miss him. Especially when she was desperate a few days ago, she missed him so much that she almost went crazy. Oh Ming squinted at her, took a sip of wine with a smile, and did not speak. Holding a glass of wine, she coiled around him like a water snake and said in a sweet voice, "If every woman pesters him like you, our Master O will be busy to death." "Master O doesn't want to talk to you now. I advise you to go out quickly. There may be some hope to hook up with other rich men, but Master O..." Hee. That's right. A young lady also came over and stood on the other side of Oh Ming. "The #1 bachelor in the capital is our Master O, and the #1 dream lover of single women in the country is also our Master O. You should be happy to see our Master O. Let's go." Yu Lily put her shoes down and quickly put them on. She looked at Oh Ming with a pair of beautiful big watery eyes that seemed to be able to speak to him. There wasn't even a single word, but there was a dazzling halo that made people unable to help but pay attention to it. Chapter 805. Since when can anyone come in our bar? Oh Ming took a sip of wine and looked at second young Master Chu. "Don't you think it's a bit degrading to let such a person in?" These words were like a sharp arrow, piercing her heart, and she was instantly dripping with blood. Who was Oh Ming talking about? Yu Lily looked at him, pursed her lips, and did not move. "Didn't you hear? You are standing here and degrading us. Go away." A young lady held a glass of wine, and under her long false eyelashes, her eyes were full of contempt. "You have been driven away like this, but you still don't leave. You are too cheap, aren't you?" Another young lady echoed. "Who do you think you are? Shut up." Yu Lily looked at them and shouted with a sullen face, "I am talking to Oh Ming. Can you replace him?" When the 2 women heard this, they were speechless and looked at Oh Ming. Oh Ming lazily looked at the sofa with his legs crossed, as if he had not heard their words. His other hand was holding a mobile phone, and no one knew what he was looking at. Second young Master Chu wanted Yu Lily to stay. At this moment he quickly said, "Well, let's not talk about it. Anyway, today is my birthday. Everyone should give me face and talk less. Waiter, bring the cake up."
The waiter quickly took the order and brought up the cake. A group of people sang the birthday song, but no one invited you Lily to sit down. Second young Master Chu cut the cake, and the young lady sitting next to O Ming immediately came to take a piece of cake, handed it to O Ming, and said, "Master O, come and eat the cake." O Ming avoided it with disgust, and his eyes fell on Yu Lily, who was standing next to him, and said, "Haven't you left yet? Gee, you want to get along with me alone. Is it because you want to do something bad to me?" O Ming's words made everyone on the scene laugh. Yu Lily looked at him all the time, and her eyes were stubborn. "I have a lot to say to you." Say it now." O Ming straightened up, put down his crossed legs, and looked at Yu Lily. "If you have finished, get out of here." Yu Lily breathed quickly, and her eyes were slightly hot. Looking at his sloppy face, she said seriously, "I really have something to tell you. Alone." "Sure enough, you're plotting against me. Leave, I'm not interested in a slut like you." O Ming wrapped his arms around the two young ladies beside him. The two women saw the surprise in each other's eyes and snuggled up to him. "Don't let me see you in the future. You spoil my appetite." "O Ming." Yu Lily took a step forward. Suddenly, her hand accidentally hit a hand that was holding a cake. The woman on O Ming's right side cried out in surprise. The cake in her hand fell and landed on O Ming's leather shoes. The scene was silent. Yu Lily's eyes widened as she stared at it. Her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. O Ming looked like a sloppy person, but when it came to certain things, he had a strange obsession with cleanliness. For example, a close-fitting shirt, a car, and leather shoes. As expected, O Ming's face immediately darkened. The woman was so scared that her face turned pale. She immediately grabbed the cake and shouted, "I'm sorry, Master O. I'm really sorry. Get out of my way." O Ming's voice was surprisingly cold. "It's none of your business." The woman was stunned and looked at O Ming. Chapter 806. His gaze was like a blade, carrying with it a cold and sharp edge, causing her to freeze on the spot. Yu Lily looked at him, her eyes redder, and she couldn't believe it. "What did you say? Are you deaf?" O Ming looked at her with a cold face, but his lips were curved with a contemptuous and sarcastic smile. "Tell her." Another woman sitting next to O Ming looked at Yu Lily and said, "Are you deaf? Master O asked you to lick it clean." Yu Lily's nose was sour, and she looked at him incredulously. Her voice was a little high and she shouted, "O Ming." Second young Master Chu saw that O Ming was really angry. After looking at his companions, he stopped him with a stern look and said, "How can you call our Master O's name? Did you hear that? You'd better obey Master O's order. Otherwise..." O Ming squinted his beautiful peach eyes slightly, put his feet on the table in front of him, lifted his toes and said with no expression, "Lick it clean, otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." The woman who was still desperately apologizing, seeing such a situation, stood up, went behind Yu Lily, pushed her hard, and said, "Didn't you hear? I asked you to lick it clean." Yu Lily's breathing became more and more rapid, and her eyes became redder and redder. Looking at O Ming's shoes covered with cake in front of her, she was pushed and staggered. However, her body was still straight, and she looked at O Ming and said, "Oh." As she spoke, her nasal voice became more and more heavy. "Do you have to humiliate me like this?" Hearing that, O Ming suddenly laughed. He lowered his head and looked down. That delicate and beautiful face was indescribably evil. O Ming's beautiful and coquettish face made the girls at the scene couldn't help but stare at him, and their cheeks became slightly red. "Humiliate?" O Ming repeated these two words, and his smile became wider. Suddenly, he raised his eyes and looked at Yu Lily. His pair of peach eyes were full of unspeakable ridicule and sarcasm. "You said that I am humiliating you?" This kind of smile, this kind of tone, it was something that had never been seen before. Yu Lily still had a trace of fantasy, but in an instant, under such a look, it was all disillusioned. In the past, O Ming would never have spoken to her in such a tone. At that time, the way he looked at her was full of tenderness and sweetness. At that time, it could be said that he held her in the palm of his hand. He protected her carefully, as if he was raising a canary. He was afraid that she would fly away, afraid that she would get lost. In the beginning, she enjoyed his protection and love, but gradually, she was tired of this feeling. She wanted freedom. She wanted to escape. But now, he had succeeded in escaping, and he had paid the price of killing those 2 children with his own hands. So, he won't accept me anymore, right? No matter how much she longed for him, no matter how much she missed him, no matter how much she liked him, he would never treat her the way he used to, right? Lily resisted the urge to cry. She smiled gently, shook her head and said, "No, I'm sorry. I thought too much. I had a lot to say to you, but now it's not necessary." Everything was all ready, there was no need. Just like that, the relationship between them completely ended 4 years ago. There's no need to humiliate yourself like that. Lily. I'll never see you again, Oh Ming. Lily turned around, straightened her back and walked out. This was the last bit of dignity she had left. This time, let her say goodbye. After 8 o'clock, tomorrow will still be 8 o'clock. Chapter 807. Seeing this, Oh Ming played with the crystal cup in his hand, tilted his head, looked at her back and said slowly, "Did I let you go?" Seeing this, Second Master Chu immediately went forward to stop Lily and said, "Hey, you want to leave after making trouble? It's not that simple." Seeing this, Lily gritted her teeth, turned around, looked at Oh Ming and roared, "What else do you want? This pair of shoes is actually not expensive. They are handmade in Italy by Master Fendilla. This is the last pair of shoes before he retired. I like it very much. When I bought it, it was 370,000 or 80,000 yuan. I'll give you a discount and compensate you with 300,000 yuan." Hearing this, Lily's face turned white again. "Why do you look like this?" Oh Ming saw her face, and his heart seemed to be pricked by a needle. It was just 300,000 yuan. In the past, Lily could spend hundreds of thousands of yuan a day to buy a bag or a pair of shoes. It was not an exaggeration to say that she spent money like water. Now, just a mere 300,000 yuan was enough to make her have such an expression? But at the same time, there was an indescribable sense of carefreeness that enveloped him. "Didn't I say, lick it clean?" Oh Ming's lips formed a cruel smile. "As long as you lick it clean, you don't have to pay." Lily's face was extremely ugly, and her eyes were fixed on Oh Ming, as if she wanted to see something on his face. But she couldn't see anything. The woman who had just pushed Lily's back again with a proud expression on her face. Just like that woman, many of the people inside were also waiting to watch a good show. Lick it clean." Second Master Chu's accomplices immediately echoed, and some people even whistled. Lily's face was hot, white and red. She looked at Oh Ming, full of hurt. Taking a deep breath, Lily felt a little dry, and her throat and heart were empty. She asked in a low voice, "Are you serious?" Oh Ming laughed and crossed his legs on the table, revealing his shoes that were covered in cake. He leaned lazily on the sofa and said, 300,000 yuan. You can leave after you pay me on the spot." The people around started to make a ruckus, especially second young Master Chu's accomplices, who whistled even louder. Lily's hands hung by her sides, clenched into fists, and said nothing. "Anyway, you've been selling yourself for 4 years. You must have changed a lot of mistresses, right? It shouldn't be a problem to borrow 300,000 yuan from so many regular customers, right? Ah, look at my bad memory. Given your hunger and thirst, how can an ordinary person satisfy you? With those men, it's probably just a one-time business deal. Tiske, no wonder you're so miserable. Didn't I teach you that you have to be more tolerant of some things?" Oh Ming. Hearing these 3 words, Oh Ming smiled brightly, and it was a little cruel, which deeply hurt Lily's eyes. Pointing to his shoes, Oh Ming raised his eyebrows. His peach blossom eyes were deep, and it was hard to see his emotions. He said, "Look at you, I don't think you can borrow it. Come on, lick it." The expression on Oh Ming's face was no different from his usual appearance. It was so understated and so casual. It seemed that it was fun to tease her like this. Chapter 808. The young lady next to Oh Ming laughed and encouraged, "Lick it. It's tiring to do this business." How many times do you have to sell it for 300,000 yuan? It's much easier to lick it. That's right. Young Master O's shoes are very clean, and the cake is also very fresh. Just treat it as a different tableware. It's not easy to earn 300,000 yuan. Another lady chuckled with gloating eyes. Hearing such words around her, Yu Lily's eyes flickered. Looking at Oh Ming's shoes, there was an obvious struggle on her face. Yes, it's 300,000 yuan. She worked herself to the bone, risking the possibility of being arrested and sent to jail, shuttling back and forth between bars every night as a bartender. Wasn't it for the money? 300,000 yuan. How much could some senior white-collar workers earn after working for a whole year? She worked as a wine carrier and had to be on tenterhooks every day to swindle those suckers. How much money could she earn after working for more than a week? As long as she bent down and licked it, she wouldn't have to compensate 300,000 yuan. Wasn't it better than making money by selling her body? At the very least, she didn't have to be labeled as a prostitute. At the very least, she earned it fair and square. She didn't have to be a sugar daddy or sell her body. She just sold her dignity, that's all. No. She had no dignity, hadn't she? What bullshit dignity? It had long been destroyed when she had no money and was forced to find how to work as a bartender to make a living. If she had dignity, she would not have gone back to How You. If she had dignity, she would not have followed Oh Ming here with a glimmer of hope and been humiliated like this. It was too ridiculous to talk about dignity at a time like this. Yu Lily's eyes flickered. Suddenly, she smiled and looked at Oh Ming. When Oh Ming saw the look on her face, the smile on his face became more and more sinister. However, the corners of his mouth became wider and wider, and the evil aura on his face became more and more unbridled, making it difficult for people to see his emotions. If I lick it, you don't need my compensation, right? There were tears in Yu Lily's eyes, but she stubbornly raised her head and didn't let the tears gather more. She looked at Oh Ming with a smile on her face. It was bright and sad. Second Master Chu clearly saw the expression on Yu Lily's face, sighed secretly, and couldn't help but feel a little sorry. After all, such a beautiful woman with such a good figure and skin was hard to come by. What a pity. After offending Oh Ming, it was basically over. If word got out, Yu Lily wouldn't be able to survive. Those who were tainted by her would definitely not have a good ending. What a pity. Taking a step forward, second young Master Chu said, "Of course, don't you know this person? This is young Master O, the only heir of Oh Ya. He definitely keeps his word." She knew. Of course she knew. How could Yu Lily not know? Oh Ming never went back on his words. The only thing I regret is sleeping with a woman like you. Because of you I killed my brother. Unless my second brother comes back to life, I will never have anything to do with you in this life. Yu Lily thought. She had no idea what Oh Ming was thinking. Get lost. Be smart and don't appear in Kingstown in the future. Otherwise, I will find someone to kill you. Be *tsh. Oh Ming played with a wine glass and silently pointed to his shoes. Oh Ming, with a choked voice, Yu Lily bit her lower lip and said, "That diary, have you finished reading it?" Death. Chapter 809. Diary? Oh Ming thought of the diary, and his eyes, which were half squinting lazily, suddenly became sharp and looked straight at Yu Lily, wishing to cut her into pieces. In that diary, Yu Lily's most brutal side was recorded. He never thought that the girl he had protected and raised for 3 years would have such a heavy heart and such cruel means. In order to break up with him, she killed her own twins. Did she really hate him so much? Oh Ming withdrew his hand, and his malice was obvious. He smashed the wine glass in his hand toward Yu Lily's body, and the delicate and clear liquid inside was immediately thrown out. The wine glass hit Yu Lily's abdomen, and then fell to the ground. The crisp sound accompanied by the splashing of fragments came out at the same time. No one expected that Oh Ming, who had always been calm, would suddenly make a move. Everyone was shocked and began to guess the relationship between him and Yu Lily. It seemed that they knew each other. Was it really an old lover relationship? Yu Lily stood in the same place, gritted her teeth and looked at him saying, "You haven't finished reading it, Oh Ming." Yes, he hadn't finished reading it. He patiently read more than half of it from the beginning. Every word and every page was filled with her hatred for him. It was a diary full of hatred. The hatred was like a sharp knife, cutting him through the words. When he finally saw his twins killed by her, there was only one thought in Ming's mind. Kill her. How could such a woman live in this world? Ming squinted and chuckled. Changing the subject? Miss you, this trick works on your lovers, but it doesn't work on me at all. Hurry up. Don't waste everyone's time. It's supposed to be used for pleasure. Otherwise, do you think your licking is so valuable? Lily's heart was stuffy, and she stared at him with red eyes. He was serious, and he really hated her. Lily's heart was stuffy and painful. Under everyone's expectant eyes, she stepped forward step by step. Seeing Lily's action, the scene immediately boiled. Second Master Chu's companions whistled, and the ladies next to him held their hands and looked at her with interest. As she approached, she stared straight at him and said, "Now that the diary is gone, it's probably in Li Da's hands." "So what?" Ming stretched out his foot. "What's the use of reading a whore's diary other than knowing how you work?" His words caused the surrounding people to laugh. Lily's fists hung by her side, and she gritted her teeth to hold back. Humiliation. Ming knew her too well. He knew best what kind of words would hurt her the most. Lily was well aware of that, so she sneered and pretended not to care. "You were the one who taught me all the postures that the whore, know. Weren't you happy when you were teaching me?" Ming stopped smiling and looked at her with a sullen face. Chapter 8:10. Lily saw his increasingly gloomy face and laughed happily. "You look tall and powerful, but in fact, you only last 5 minutes each time. Oh, sometimes less than 3 minutes, and you are embarrassed to go to the doctor. Ming, this is an illness, and you have to treat it." Hearing Lily's words, everyone looked at Ming in unison. Through their conversation, the bystanders already had their suspicions about their relationship. Hearing this topic at this moment, maybe it was true? "Provoke me." Ming leaned lazily on the sofa and chuckled. "Are you sure you don't feel good every time?" Lily saw his smile and felt a little scared. She sneered. "Do you think you can? I can only pretend to have orgasms every time to cater to you, otherwise, will you let me go?" Ming smiled and looked away, put his feet down, stood up, and walked toward her step by step. Lily felt something was wrong and subconsciously pushed back. However, Second Master Chu behind her immediately pushed her. Ming opened his arms and held her in his arms. Lily's heart jumped, looked up at him, and suddenly breathed quickly. "The distance between me and him is so close, however." Lily saw the gloomy look in Ming's eyes, and she was alarmed. Before she could recover, her body was suddenly pushed and fell on the sofa. The beauty sitting next to her immediately avoided. Lily struggled to stand up, but before she could support her body, she felt a hot body covering her body. Unprepared, her lips were sealed. Ming's mouth had the smell of tobacco and liquor. The clear touch and smell told her that it was not fake. But this was still a public place. The people next to them screamed and sat aside excitedly. Lily's heart was in pain, and she struggled hard with her hands and feet. However, Ming easily grabbed her hand and raised it high above her head. Lily's hands were very thin, and one of Ming's hands was enough to hold both of them. "Every time you do this, can't you change your way of struggling, huh?" Ming's eyes did not contain any warmth, and there was even a sense of revenge in his peach blossom eyes. "Didn't you say that I didn't make you feel good? Why don't you try it in front of everyone?" Lily was so scared that she shouted, "What do you want to do?" Ming stuffed all of her words back into her stomach. His other big hand unscrupulously touched her waistline and easily tore apart her red dress. Lily only felt that her body was cold, and her chest was suddenly exposed, revealing the pink silicone. Everyone was even more excited, and picked up their mobile phones to shoot videos. Ming's kiss was aggressive and punishing. His strong manly scent made her even more afraid. But inexplicably, as she twisted her body, she felt an indescribable numbness, and she couldn't help but moan. Ming's eyes turned into crescents as he pulled her up. Wherever his big hands passed, the sound of clothes tearing could be heard. The tight waistline, full snow white, and the delicate porcelain-like skin were all Yu's eyes. And you was. And her tight waistline, Plump snow-white breasts, and delicate porcelain-like skin all made one's blood boil.
Lily.
Chapter 8:11. She is the best. Such a stunner is hard to come by. Lily was held in his arms. Ming's big palm moved inch by inch, and his hot kiss moved down from her lips. Holding him, she screamed and didn't know where she was. With her eyes half closed, she couldn't help but reach out and hold him tightly. Feeling him from chin, collarbone. The scream suddenly pulled Lily back to reality. She looked around, and the stimulation under the eyes of the public made her legs tighter. Bursts of excitement came like a tide. Lily couldn't help but raise her head, which brought the atmosphere of the scene to the peak. Ming's breath was calm, and his hair was slightly messy. He pressed her on the back of the sofa and whispered with a smile, "So fast." The 3 words directly made Lily feel even more humiliated. People around her were looking at her, and some people were taking photos with their mobile phones. On Ming's body, his clothes were still neat and tidy, but they were a little messy, and they looked neat and blurry. And at this moment, unrestrained, unclothed, battered and exhausted, facing so many cameras and covering her face, Lily pushed him away forcefully. Her eyes were red, and her tears were about to fall. But Ming didn't let go, but lifted her torn clothes and said, "Is it good? Do you want to do it again? So many people are watching your performance. Don't let them down." Lily's tears fell, and she raised her hand to slap Ming's face. Slap. The loud sound made the people around quiet. The slap made Ming slightly tilt his head, and his eyes darkened. Lily almost broke down and cried. She pushed him away, gritted her teeth, pulled up her clothes, picked up her bag, stood up, and ran away. Being pushed like that, Ming's eyes darkened. Looking at her fleeing figure, not only did his heart not feel the slightest bit of joy that he had imagined, but there was a familiar yet unfamiliar dull pain in his heart. He reached out and touched his cheek, which was burning because of the slap, and chuckled. Facing the people around him, he threatened with an evil smile, "If today's things leak out, you can try it." The people who were excited just now immediately felt like a basin of cold water had been poured on them, and they deleted the photos and videos in embarrassment. Lily had never felt so embarrassed before. Her tattered clothes couldn't hide her body at all. Embarrassed, humiliated. What is self-respect? What is dignity? What is face? Nothing at all. Lily stopped a taxi and gave the driver her address. She couldn't help but cry in the car. Seeing her like that, the driver was a little worried and asked, "Miss, what happened? Do you want me to call the police for you?" Lily stopped crying and shook her head. By the time Lily arrived at the newly rented house, it was already 20 minutes later. Stumbling on the bed, Lily finally couldn't bear it and burst into tears. Why was it like this? Why was it like this? It shouldn't be like this. The humiliation that Ming had given her was 100 times, 1,000 times worse than what others had given her. He had never felt so dead in his heart and despair. Lily walked into the bathroom with trembling legs. She looked at herself in the mirror and felt extremely sad. Chapter 8:12. None of the orphans abandoned in the orphanage had a proper birthday. All of them were based on the date when the orphanage found the child. When Lily was found, it was the 5th day of the new year. Because of the special date, if you worked during that time, you would get 3 times the salary. Therefore, in the past 17 years, Lily had not had a proper birthday. She was either working part-time in a restaurant or as a manager in an amusement park. She thought that her 18th birthday would be no different from before, but this year made her feel very different. Ding dong! The doorbell rang, and Lily jumped up from the sofa happily. She ran to the door and opened it directly. Seeing her like this, Ming frowned and said, "You didn't ask who it was before opening the door. What if it was a bad guy?" "It won't be." Lily was a little excited and looked at his hand, which was holding a big cake. "Wow, there is really a cake. Ha ha ha, give it to me." Lily took the cake from Ming's hand, bowed her head to smell it, and walked in with the cake. Seeing this, Ming smiled and closed the door. He went in, took off his coat, and put it on the sofa. "Happy birthday." Ming sat next to her and helped her open the cake. "You are 18 years old,
a big girl. Yu Lily's eyes were shining, and she nodded excitedly. Especially when she saw the big chocolate cake, she was drooling. She turned to look at Oh Ming, and her eyes were shining. Wow, such a big cake. Can the two of us finish it? Oh Ming smiled widely, opened the paper plate, and helped her put 18 candles in it. After lighting them one by one, he said, "Make a wish." Ah! Yu Lily was a little disappointed. She looked at him and said, "Don't you sing the birthday song for me? Sing it." "What song?" "Childish." Oh Ming patted her on the head and whispered, "Hurry up and make a wish and blow out the candles." Yu Lily pouted, and her cheeks were red in the candlelight. It was like being covered with a layer of orange light, but her smile became wider and wider. She said, "I hope that I can have cake on my birthday in the future." It was a simple birthday wish, but it made Oh Ming's heart ache. His big hand touched her little head, and his eyes softened slightly. He said, There will be in the future." "Really?" Yu Lily looked at him with a smile. Her eyes were like bright stars. She turned her head, blew out the candle and said, "I have never eaten such a big cake. I want to eat this flower." "It's all yours. Eat slowly." Oh Ming sat on the side and looked at her with a smile. It was as if he was looking at a child, and there was a deeper meaning that Yu Lily couldn't understand. He had been living with her for more than 9 months. Over the past 9 months, they had become increasingly familiar with each other. The two of them shared the same bed and naturally slept together, but Oh Ming cleverly didn't cross the line. Even when he kissed her, he only lightly touched her forehead. He didn't go overboard. Today it was finally possible. From today onwards, she would be an adult. Chapter 8:13. Done. Yu Lily handed a slice of cake to him and said, "This is the best slice I've cut. Here you go." "Thank you, Yu Lily." "You're welcome, Mr. O." Yu Lily didn't care. She cut a piece of cake for herself, picked up the fork and took a bite. The sweet taste melted in her mouth. Yu Lily felt that she was so happy that she was about to jump up. She looked up excitedly and exclaimed, "It's delicious. It's much better than Fu Lungbing's birthday cake." "Who is Fu Lungbing?" Oh Ming asked. "When we were in high school, he was the richest person in our class. He always wore branded clothes. Adidas, Nike, and Jordan were all very expensive, and when we were in the 3rd year of high school, he had an iPhone. He was so rich." Yu Lily said enviously while eating the cake, "If I had such a rich father, it would be great." Oh Ming chuckled. "If you want, I can buy you anything. Do you want a mobile phone?" "No, it's too expensive." Yu Lily looked up at him while eating the cake and said, "I heard that the mobile phone costs more than 4,000 yuan. It's so expensive. I only earn 60 yuan a day in part-time jobs. How many part-time jobs do I have to do to buy such a mobile phone?" "Little miser." Oh Ming tapped her forehead. "We don't have to be so clear between us. I like you, and I'm willing to give you money. Just take it. If you want anything in the future, just tell me directly. I'll buy it for you, or use the card I gave you to buy it yourself." Yu Lily stuck out her tongue and ate the cake. Seeing this, Oh Ming magically took out a small box from his pocket and handed it forward. "Here, a birthday gift." Yu Lily was surprised. She took the box and opened it. At a glance, she saw a watch in it. Lungins. It's so beautiful. Yu Lily picked up the watch and turned it over. "How much is this? It must be expensive, right?" Oh Ming was a little unhappy when he heard her mention money again. He took the watch and said, "It's a gift for you. Just take it. No matter how much it costs, I'll put it on for you." Well, Yu Lily put the empty cake plate aside and looked at the watch with sparkling eyes. Oh Ming patiently put it on for her and asked in a magnetic voice, "Do you like it?" Yu Lily looked at the watch, and the smile on her face widened. She did not hesitate and replied, "I like it." Inadvertently, she looked up and found that his face was very close to her. Yu Lily's heart jumped. She subconsciously wanted to avoid it, but Oh Ming took the opportunity to get close to her. His hands were on both sides of her body and kissed her lips. Yu Lily's eyes widened. The soft touch on her lips was like cotton candy, soft and sweet. Yu Lily was stunned. And Yu's. Didn't know what. Oh Ming squinted, held her in his arms, and slowly pressed his body down. The tip of his tongue came out and gently swept over her. Yu Lily felt as if she had been electrocuted. Yu Lily's hands subconsciously pushed him away. Her face was so red that it was almost hot enough to boil an egg. You Lil Zos.
Lilith.
Her you oh. You. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.